Welcome to the Pitching Command Show, brought to you by Command Trakker, the smart target that MLB and D1 teams rely upon to measure and train command. Many throw hard, but few command. Visit commandtrakker.com. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, joining today's podcast is my good friend Scott Emerson, the Oakland A's Major League pitching coach. Welcome, Emo. I'm glad to have you on the show again.
Hey, thanks for having me, Wayne.
Yeah, I wanted you on the first show, and we got scheduling problems. And so you're going to be on the last show of 2023. And this show, it's about the 9 qualities I always ask everyone to pick from. And we're going to kind of debate how those qualities fit into what makes a successful pitcher. The first thing I thought we ought to do is define what success is. So when we say a successful pitcher, we should tell people what that means. To me, a successful pitcher wins games.
Yeah, that's the object of the game, right? We go out and we play to win the games.
Yeah, then we could break it down. How do you win games? By giving up few runs, fewer pitches, so you don't tax the bullpen. So how would you define success for a pitcher?
Well, I think success is, like you said, obviously you go out there and you're trying to win the baseball game. And that's why we're all competitors and we're all playing. Starting pitchers, they go out there, they keep their team in the game as long as possible to win games. Obviously, if you don't score any runs and you give up a 1 run, you're going to lose the game. So, defining what a pitcher needs to be doing to be successful is he needs to be keeping his teams in the game, giving his team a chance to win the game, whether that's going as long as he can, as hard as he can, trying to get into that 7th, 8th, and 9th inning to save your bullpen for the long haul. But what successful pitchers do are these characteristics that we're going to talk about today, and they intertwine with each other. There's different orders for different things that different people value. Different organizations value different things. Different programs value different things. But we all should be valuing one thing, and that's winning. And
I'm glad you said that, because I think a lot of times people lose sight of that. And I always quote you. Scott Bankhead had told me about a time you were in front of a bunch of high school pitchers, and you asked them what the job of a pitcher is. And they were shouting out to throw the hardest, to spin this and this. And you wrote OUTS on the board. And I thought that was awesome, because when people are chasing velocity or spin rate or all these other qualities, I think sometimes they forget that the object is to win. And so
what we're trying to do is chase those things to get outs to give us a chance to win the game. So
absolutely.
It's just the order and the preferences, the way the things that you value to do that. And that's the premise of the show has been all your guests have come on and gave great opinions and told us and you what they value in a pitcher to get outs to help your team win the game. Look, wins are hard to come by. Me and in our organization, we're fortunate to have great years, and now we're kind of in that rebuild, and the wins may not come as fast as we want them to, but the process to go out there and compete like a winner and try to win the games. We don't just go out there and say, "Oh, we're going to lose tonight." We're training ourselves to go out there with a competitive mindset to win this baseball game with the process. We may not be good enough yet, but if we stick to these processes in time, we are going to be good. And yes, it's sometimes, you got to be patient, and people don't like to be patient. We're impatient people because we want to see immediate results happen now. But when you understand your situation, but you understand how to build something, that's the key. We're building to win games in the long haul.
Well, one thing I always wondered was, in that mindset, I agree with that. When people talk about what it takes to win or to get outs or to get a batter out, why they prefer a guy throwing 100 miles an hour at 5 or 6 pitches to get the guy out, over one guy throwing a one pitch at 89 to get an out. To me, like you remember in Moneyball, the guy said, why do we want this guy? He says, he points, he says, because he gets on base. You know, like, do we care how he gets on base? No, we do not. You know, to me, I have that mindset of, do I care how you get the out? Not really. I would prefer you get the out with the least amount of bullets used, because if you do that, I think you're going to help your team win because you'll be in the game longer. That's my thinking.
Yeah, 100%. You know, the outs are the most important thing. You got to have a guy who can go out and get outs. Then you got to have the understanding of how this guy goes out and get his outs. Now, what you also have to understand, Wayne, is that a ball in play may not be a good thing. You know, swing and miss can be a good thing because nothing catastrophic can happen. But hear me out here.
All right.
Hear me out here. But what happens is when you're trying to pitch to swing and miss and you can't get swing and miss, that's the problem. And then what happens is, think about this. How many strikeouts a game are in a game? 9 or 10 that your team is performing. So
right, the rest, that's my point too.
Just say you get 9 strikeouts a game. How many of those are going to be on swing and miss? How many of those are going to be on pitches that are taken inside the strike zone? How many are going to be maybe a ball off that is called a strike? You got to get 2/3 of your outs by way of non-strikeout. Yet a lot of baseball is teaching everybody that you have to be dominant and show a lot of strikeouts. It's not that easy, or we would be doing more of it. So, but my point is, when you have that ability to have swing and miss, you have the ability to add these characteristics that we're going to talk about, and you can do that, and you can limit more damage because you can do that. It's just like hitting the ball hard. Over the course of the time, the more balls you can hit hard, probably the better outcomes you're going to have. The more times you can have a swing and miss, the more outcome you can have, the better outcome you could probably have. The problem is we're teaching everybody to be an elite Hall of Fame pitcher, and 2/3 of your staff isn't going to do that.
Right. I think what they're doing is they're training everybody to be a reliever. It's like the swing and miss guys, you want to be relievers, and you want that. If you got bases loaded, you got a situation on the field, you want a guy to come in and shut it down. I agree.
That's 100%. That's 100% correct. Is there's a lot of training to be relievers, and it's starting out in the showcase level where guys are only going to these tournaments on the weekend and pitching 1 or 2 innings and trying to impress everybody with the radar gun, instead of impressing everybody that this guy can go 6 or 7 innings in 80 to 85 pitches.
Yeah,
so summer baseball for high school isn't, you don't hear as much about the leagues that are going on this summer. You hear more about the weekend tournament, the guy coming in, letting it eat for an inning or 3, and then being taken out of the game. There's no league competitions that I'm hearing about enough. And that's the one thing we're missing. And then developing that starting pitcher, like you said, when everybody's trying to pitch to swing and miss nonstop, the elite guys, they're going to do it. They're going to be able to strike out, 10, 11 guys a game, pitch to swing and miss, throw 100 pitches in 7 innings. But we don't always have, everybody's not elite. There's not every pitcher making 30 million in baseball. And there's not, your third pitcher on your high school team is not probably going to average 10 strikeouts a game or 1 strikeout per inning. So he has to find a way. And that is what pitching is.
Right. And I'll give you another example of another pitcher that you and I both know. I won't say his name. Throws typically 90, 92 in AAA. And it was one year, I think last year, or the year before. Every time a guy got on base in the first inning, like too many pitches, walked him, got on base. The next batter was up. He's thrown sinkers, and he's getting weak ground balls to the shortstop and a double play. He did that 3 or 4 times in a row to where the announcers were saying, how does he do that? It's amazing. And I'm shouting at the screen, it's his plan. So what I'm saying is that there is a strategy or a tactic to pitching that is different if you want to strike a guy out as opposed to you want to get an out. What do you think of that? Like, I think that style is not really. Remember, what was the guy, Kirby? He had Sean McGrath on, and George Kirby had been with him, I think, in the Mariners, the minor leagues. He's thrown 90, 92, and he was getting tons of outs. And they're all scratching their head on TV. Why is he getting outs? How does he do it? And I'm shouting, he's pitching, right?
Well, that's what, a lot of guys at their level of competition have to pitch, because not everybody at their level of competition is elite. So you got to find a way to get
No,
outs.
I know, but that's what I'm getting at is just because you throw hard, I don't think you're elite. I think there are all these levers. When I talk about the 9 qualities, I think there are all these levers, and that if you could raise them all, you're a Hall of Famer. But I think there's a mixture of these group and these group can go up and down, and you could find a combination that creates a winning pitcher.
Well, the elite guys, what I mean by elite is they know how to throw enough strikes, right? They know how to get enough outs on the ground, in the air, soft contact, and punch outs when you need them, and generally have, good enough major league stuff or stuff for that level. And some of it is, yes, they do throw hard, but the elite guys not only throw hard, but they command the baseball and throw strikes, and they know how to pitch. And
Right.
that's
They got
really
all the levers going up.
yeah, that's really what you're looking for. Is somebody says, well, you want both. Yeah, you're dang right. I want both. I want a guy throwing 97 to 100 with command.
That's what Brad Osmus was on the show, and that's what he said too. So I want all of it, and I agree with him.
Yeah, that's the big league pitcher that you want. Why settle for less? I was fortunate to speak at the Bridges at Wake Forest, and I talked about developing starting pitching. And one of the things that we don't do is enough anymore is time. Give me a estimated time of arrival for this guy to be at a certain level. And when you have time, you can start developing command. Hey, I need you to start using, and that's not just your fastball. That's having the ability to land your breaking ball early in the count, so you can get a wipeout with it later in the count. So
I agree. When I talk about command, I mean, if you throw a pitch in a game, you got to have command of it. I don't count you as having that pitch unless you can command it.
Right. Like if you look at this screen, that circle right around the middle, don't throw it there. That's where the big league hitters hit it. You got to be able to branch the ball off. You can start it down the middle. Heck yeah. Hey, this guy needs to start it down the middle, more in the box, for it to land on the corner or on the edges or in the shadow zones, whatever you want to call it. But you cannot constantly throw pitches down the middle, and because that just one pitch that lays right down the middle is a 2-run homer, and that can cost you the ball game.
Well, so, I think what happens is guys that don't have command because they never trained it, and again, I got to plug my target because my target is probably the only thing out there that trains command. And what I mean by command is not command of the strike zone. I mean command of specific areas. What I think happens is guys don't train for that. So what do? One strategy is just throw it hard right down the middle and let the break carry it to the left, right, up, or down. They don't know where it's going to be in the strike zone, but they know if they throw it in the middle, it's not going to be in the middle because it's going to move. And that's how they kind of work around not having command. But command is
try to be the catcher and sit there and play hockey goalie, and then all of a sudden you're getting penalized on framing numbers, right? Because you're just kind of guessing where it's going. It starts out one way, it moves another. You're violently moving too much. That umpire's like, nope, ball. It could be a strike.
Right. Bronson Arroyo was on the show talking about that too. He said, I have a gun that shoots crooked, but it's the same way all the time. I could command that. But if you got a gun that shoots this way one day and that way, he says, you don't know where it's going to go.
Like I said, and we'll get into these profiles and the characteristics that we're talking about and what we value. if you got a guy who throws 97 to 100 and he can throw it in the box, I need him to be able to throw it in the box first. And then we can, maybe help him move and change speeds. We can get into all that stuff first. But the first thing, we're 49.9% of our pitches are inside the strike zone right now at the big league level. And some of that 66% or 65, 64, right in that range, strike percentage. So you look at the chase rate, 15, 16, 17%, whatever it is in any given year, and it keeps rising, right? Because we're chasing a little bit more than ever before, in my opinion. I remember at one time it was 9% chase rate outside the strike zone, and we were living in the box about 55%, maybe 10, 15 years ago. So, but we're creating strikes more at 65% because we're getting more chase outside the strike zone. So if the chase rate keeps going outside the strike zone, some are going to, say, well, why am I going to throw as many pitches in the zone when these hitters are chasing balls out of the zone? And I'm I'm playing the catch-22 with you here and playing devil's advocate and just kind of, playing the fact that, hey, if I throw 97 and I still need to change speeds. I need to not be predictable and keep throwing 97.
No, wait. Do you remember the recent NLDS? And there was a 14 pitch at bat. I was talking to, I think, Peter Gammons about, and having 5 walks at a game. With our friend Tim Hires was a great hitting coach. He got 5 walks in one game. Was it maybe more? Anyway, the point is, I've seen a lot of pitchers, and what do you think? That they throw really hard, and they get swinging out of the zone sometimes, but they have trouble putting guys away. It's they throw a lot of pitches, and they're not getting the out. If you take 14 pitches to get an out, that's insane.
Well, what happens?
That should be an inning. Right?
Your swing and miss pitch, to have a good put away pitch, your swing and miss pitch has to show up with 2 strikes. Take a guy, for instance, he's sitting on first pitch fastball, and you throw him a really good slider down away, but he doesn't recognize that, right? In that fastball mode, he's more geared to swing, let it loose, let it fly. He sees the pitch in his area, he lets it go, boom, slider down away, swing and miss. 2 strikes, more times than not, that pitch isn't showing up for a swing and miss with 2 strikes because one, the hitter is in a little bit more defensive mode, a little bit more protective. He fouls it off. And if your pitch isn't good enough, that's what happens. Foul ball,
right.
Foul ball.
You're exactly right.
So how are you going to set up that pitch if it's just an average to slightly above average breaking ball, and you're trying to constantly get swing and miss with it?
Because then they need command. If they're going to swing and foul off a slider, he's got to know, I got to command my fastball inside or up and in, right? He's got to know,
like this. I had a pitcher a long time ago in Double-A, and he threw a guy like 8 sliders, and they were all really good sliders down the corner, down the way. And the guy flips one into right field, and he comes in all upset saying, hey, I can't believe this guy hit my slider. And I'm like, I can. And he's like, why? I go, you threw it 8 times in a row. Look, you've heard the term, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Listen, if you're walking that horse and leading it to water, that thing is going to drink it. I'm telling you, he's not going to walk all day in the desert like these cowboys did back in the day when they're going across the country with their horses. When the horse saw water, he drank it.
Yeah. I think every pitch, you're giving the batter information about you, just like every pitch the batter is giving you information. Like the last 2 episodes, we did 3 hours covering reading batters, Chad Durbin and our friend Mac Jenkins. I call it a master class. These guys, I learned some amazing things about how to read batters. And I'd also like to do one day with Tim Hires about how to read pitchers, not tipping pitches, but how to read pitchers,
Well, reading batters has always been, a forte that we've always preached in pitching, and we call it swing recognition. In the, what I've called it for 32 years I've been in professional baseball. He's trying to swing. What's he trying to do? Is he moving up in the box? Is he moving back in the box? Is he just trying to go the other way and put the ball in play? The best hitters in baseball take what we give them. I can tell you, watching Mike Trout for 10 years, and if we throw him away, he'll hit the ball the other way. If we leave a ball in, he'll turn on it. That's what the best do. The best have the ability to make adjustments. Some guys just don't make an adjustment, and you get them out more times than not because they're unwilling to make that adjustment. They're unwilling to take that ball the other way. You start giving up, and Trout's elite, right? He's got big time power. He can hit the ball over the fence the other way. So, it's not just away, away, away. You got to go away. You got to show him something in to keep away. You got to go in to keep away. You got to go in with the fastball. You got to go down with the breaking ball. You got to go, down with the fastball to keep that breaking ball down and away as well. Dang it, that was a fastball down and away, not a slider. So there's a lot of cat and mouse going on into reading batters, their approach. What are they trying to do against our pitchers? We tease each other about, I can say it because it's no secret that Seager loves the first pitch. Seager knows that I know that he knows that we all know that Seager loves the first pitch. I mean, it's just what it is. You make a mistake. It's not like the home run that Seawald gave up to him was a mistake. He didn't hit his intended target, and everybody's complaining that why would this guy throw him a fastball on the first pitch and he hit the homer? Well, he just didn't execute that pitch, and Seager jumped on it and hit the homer. But it's not the wrong pitch if you can execute it.
Now I'll go through those 9 items since we kind of talked about what success is. And the most contentious one that we've talked about, you and I think is the most important. It's character. I know you're going to poke holes in it, but I think character is about you and be able to ride highs and the lows the same way. Character makes you do the things that you should do rather than just the things you want to do. I think character permeates to the whole team, and that if you have a bad character on a team, it brings the whole team down. And to me, if you're bringing the team down, you have less chance of winning, which is the whole objective of the pitcher.
Right. What I'm going to flip this on is played my little Stephen A with you. It is I agree with you for clubhouse culture and all that stuff, but the purpose of the show and talking about the command show, you can have the best character in the world and stink, right? You can be the hardest worker on the baseball team and stink and not be any good. You can have the best character and not be good, and you can have bad character and be the best pitcher on the team. Look, coaching in the big leagues and coaching 24 years of professional baseball, being in professional baseball 32 years, I've seen some dudes that didn't have the greatest character, but when they got on the mound, I take them. I want them on my ball club. I want them on the team because I knew.
Wait, but why? What I'm getting at
is they had because Wayne, they had these other intangibles that are more important to help me win a baseball game. Right. I need.
Exactly.
And I'm not disagreeing with you on the character side, but what I'm disagreeing on you is to be a good pitcher when you go out and toe the slab and you get on the rubber, character or not. Are you good or are you not good? And that's what I need.
Yeah. And see, like you have other characters, we won't mention a name, a pitcher nowadays that has have had some trouble. No team would want him on that team because it would destroy the culture of the team. It would bring everything down, and it would and they wouldn't be able to win. And even if they did win, I don't think people would want that win.
Well, that's where I agree with you and we know who we're talking about. That's
Yeah.
where I agree with you on maybe the character side of that. But when it comes to getting the out and it comes to pitching in the ball game, that's when the character, how hard you work, and even reading batters. You could read batters and still not be good enough to execute pitches. So that was
Of
kind of,
course.
that was kind of where that, when we polled all the coaches, and I get to come on the last show and I get to play the devil's advocate and tell
Uh,
you, look, velocity is great. I really love it. But if you don't
yeah.
throw a strike, it doesn't mean anything. So
Right.
that can't be, in my opinion, number one, because if you keep throwing it off the backstop, you're not playing. So that's why when I put these in an order, and this is why I have this order. Hey, dude, I want everybody to throw 100. I really do. But you throw it off the backstop, you're not pitching. So what
Yeah.
I want is, in this specific order, if you can do these things, you're going to be really good. And that was what my order was. Now, hear me out. I'm not saying that if you have elite velocity, you throw 100 and command is like 7th, you're not
Yeah.
pitching.
Right.
But if you have elite velocity and your value of command is like 3rd, maybe 4th or 2nd, you're at least competitive enough to be there. But you just can't go out and say, I throw 105, watch me, and I'm hearing balls off the backstop or off the fence. That doesn't mean nothing to me anymore. So that's why, I'm playing this role
Yeah. Yeah.
of
I agree with you.
understanding,
I agree with you
sequencing.
that. Yeah, I
Sequencing
agree
is
with you.
great. That's another one we got, sequencing. But if you can't execute and command the ball with sequencing, it's like tunneling. We can work all day on the tunnel. Okay, let's throw a 4-seamer middle into a right-hander, and if it's 0-1, let's push him off with a 2-seamer middle in to that right-hander. It kind of goes deep, buries him, maybe pushes him off the plate and jams him. But if
You
you
need
make a mistake with the first 4-seamer and you
yeah, you
yank
need
it down and away, you lost your tunnel.
yeah, you need command to tunnel. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I love the premise of the show, that command. And tell me if I'm wrong, what was it? 93% of the poll
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
command as number one.
Yeah. Out of 29 people on the show, all great guests.
100%.
93% chose command as within their top 4.
Because at some
57.
point in time, we can train to throw hard, which is fine. But you have to train to throw hard with command, or you're just it's like a boxer training to get stronger, but doesn't execute the moves of the punch. He has no idea to box. He's going to get his
Yeah.
brains beat in against a good boxer.
Well, yeah, it's like exercising, but exercising one leg. You're going to be pretty lopsided,
Yeah, 100%.
So I that's what I always talk about on the show, is that you need all these qualities. The debate really is about how much of each do you need. Like it's a mixture. You can have a finesse pitcher or a power pitcher, or have different mixtures of qualities. And like Dan DeQuette had called it like a recipe. He said you
Yeah,
could take.
I don't think it's a debate. I think you need all these, right?
Yeah.
To be a really good
Well,
pitcher, clubhouse teammate. These are things.
The debate is how much, when you are creating a different pitcher that would have success, how much of each you would need. Like if you had lower velo, well, how much more command would you need, and how much more reading batter skills would you need to overcome a lower velo? That's kind of debatable.
Yeah, well, just like we talked earlier, like okay, so I'm a guy that throws 90 to 92. I'm obviously, in my opinion, going to say command has to be at the forefront. You need to
Right.
know how to command the ball. You need to know how to read batters so you can sequence your pitches. You
That's
need to
right.
know how to change speeds to mask that
Right.
lower velocity to make it look harder. So that's
Right.
where we're intertwining these things. And the guy with the high velo and movement and then command, you got to have enough command to be playable and be on the team. So yeah, you can go velo 1, movement 2, and and command 3, that's fine. But my point in my order is command, changes speeds, movement, then the velocity comes in. If I can command the baseball, I can change
Well,
speed. Why am I changing speeds, Wayne? I'm changing speeds because of hitting's time and pitching is disruption of timing. Then we all
absolutely.
need to know that we got to have some movement to get the ball off the barrel.
But
And then we have enough velocity to get the major league hitter out, or the hitter comparable to the league we're pitching in.
right, but well, most people, I think, get tripped up a little bit when they talk about command. It's like the command you were talking about for a high velo pitcher, I would consider control because he has command of the strike zone. When you have command of the strike zone, that's control. And I
Yeah,
think
I
some
would.
people confuse it with command that I'm talking about, which is smaller areas in or out of the zone, and that's allows you to pitch in sequence and read the batters and know where to pitch, to get your outs.
Yeah, that's his profile. I mean, that's just who he is. Now, do I believe we can work on command? Yes.
Yeah,
But I
I know
also
we can. Yeah,
believe that it's a skill that's got to be taught and trained and got to be executed by the pitcher. A lot of pitchers, in my opinion, pitch above their means. They're overthrowing the baseball because maybe they're not ready for that level. I was just talking to a friend of mine about youth baseball, having a 15-year-old pitch on an 18-year-old team. He may not be ready yet. He may be good enough to get his outs. So he's trying to overthrow the baseball. He's trying to do too much. His innings are 23, 24 pitches an inning instead of that 17-year-old who's in his own competition throwing 15, 16 pitches. Look, for me, if you're throwing more than 17 pitches an inning, 18 pitches, you're really working. Now, if you go back a level of your competition, say you're a varsity pitcher throwing 24, 25 pitches an inning, and you go back to JV, all of a sudden you're back down to 17, 18. That's probably the level of competition that you're ready for, and you might not be ready for that varsity competition, right? And the same thing goes on college to junior college. In junior college, you get 18 pitches an inning. Then you go to D1 baseball and it's 24 pitches as a junior. You might not be good enough yet or ready for. Now it's why. Let's execute the why, because you don't command the ball enough. You don't change speeds enough. You don't have any movement. Your velo, and yes, it's important. Your velo isn't good enough for D1 at 82 with the ability, with the way you command the ball. Right now, you throw it down the middle at 82, 83, Division One. You're probably not a successful guy unless you're an angle guy or you really know how to change speeds. But at 82, 83, you got to locate more than the guy throwing 90 to 92.
Well, let's take command as a skill. I agree with you 100%. I know you can train it. I've seen it. Dan Hefner was on the show. He's a great coach, a great guy. And he was talking about they were one of the first colleges to get a TrackMan unit. And so they went all in on high velo, trying to throw harder. And they can, and it worked, he said. They got their pitchers to throw a lot harder. He said, but then as the years went by, everybody was doing that. And everybody's throwing harder. So that instead of 92 being elite in D1, now it's 95. Now it's 96. So then people were working on getting more movement or different movement from average. And they used TrackMan and Rapsodo and tools like that to get more movement. And that worked. Then you saw everybody getting great movement. Everybody's with the whirly now, right? With the sweeper. And everybody's doing that. And so what you said on the show really crystallized what I thought too, when you said everybody has velocity at a higher level. It's command that separates them. So command, I think, is a skill that you can train just like velocity, just like movement, but it's not trained. And I think partly it's because there wasn't a tool like the command tracker target I saw. But what are your thoughts on why command has been relegated so low on what's needed when it's actually on the top 3 of what you need?
Well, because it's hard to quantify. During the game, you don't really know where the pitcher is intended to go. You're guessing because of the catcher is sliding or moving or setting up a target. Until we have better ways of quantifying the pitch, then, you know, sometimes some people just push it to the side because it's not as important because you can't quantify it. And, you know, you want to be a good coach, you got to use these things too. You know, you combined all your data and these things. You know, the best thing that we talk about is being data informed and not being data driven. And
I like that.
basically, you know, that basically is taking all the information that you're gathering and using it to form an opinion. If you're just kind of going, well, if we just throw it here, he'll be good. But it's not that easy. That's the point. It's really not that easy for pitchers to just kind of throw it to where they want it or where they need it.
Yeah, because they have. That's why I did those 3 hours of episodes on reading batters. Because when you know how to read a batter, and then you have command of all of your pitches, now you can slice and dice. I mean, you know, you can change speeds, hit locations. You read the batters. You're kind of in a dance with the batter. So you're kind of, in my mind, pitching. And when I talk about guys who throw hard, now I call them throwers. That's why that group on LinkedIn I have is called Pitchers Over Throwers, because I think there are two different levels. And, you know, to a degree, there was a time when you could get by as just a thrower.
Now,
I think that's
what I heard could be possible is the wristband that our catchers call signals on through PitchCom. If we want, I think they're working on this. Don't really quote me and don't, but I think this is what they're going to do, or what I heard is that if the catcher pulls the trigger on the PitchCom and calls fastball down and away, and the pitcher doesn't get the ball down and away, then they can tie this into the data and say, well, he didn't hit his intended target, because now we don't really know what down and away might mean to some.
Yeah.
Some might just be a bigger area. Some might be a smaller area, but at least you're going to get maybe a possible better idea. Catcher pulls the trigger, fastball up, the ball goes down. He missed his intended target.
Yeah, they could do that. It's just, it's a big area. It's not the level of command I'm talking about. That's kind of like the difference between having command of the strike zone, which is the whole zone. Now, if you have a command of down and away, that's a pretty big area. That's more like Pedro Martinez talked about executing your idea, that if you're going to go down and away, if you're going to miss, go really further. And so
yeah, when I tell guys to throw it up, if it's over the catcher's head, at least you kind of threw it up.
Right. So that, I think if they use PitchCom to measure command, if you will, like it's a level of command that's not refined enough to do what we're talking about. It's more of did he execute the idea?
Correct.
You know, so it is of use for that, you know, but it's not of use for did he execute the plan? It's more of he executed the idea.
Right. And kind of getting back to our characteristics things, and what I was talking about with my four that I like, location, change of speeds, movement, and velocity. I throw in a little bit of effort level there, how you're sequencing your mechanics and all. But also is when you can do that, for me, you have mental toughness. And that's why I didn't put mental toughness on mine in a top four, because if you could do these things, I'm assuming you're mentally tough. If you come out and say, I need a mentally tough guy, but he can't command the ball, or he doesn't have these other attributes, well, then that's going back to what I said earlier, then I don't want him, you know?
Well, it goes back to what we talked about, that all of these are interrelated.
Right.
If you like the show, hit the subscribe and like buttons. It really helps us out. And check out the Command Trakker Smart Target at commandtrakker.com. That's tracker with 2 Ks. And you can now download a free demo of PitchGrader, the original advanced 3D analysis tool used by MLB and D1 teams since 2018. Check it out at pitchgrader.com. And our friends at Play9 Sports, that's shopplay9.com, will have a command tracker target on display at ABCA January 4th to the 6th. Check them out at booth 1316. And check out these books on Amazon: Applied Technology in Pitching, Baseball Pitches, a Modern Data Definition, and just released a Pitching Command, Measurement, Development, and Bullpen Plans. All three great books if you're into data and pitching. So let's cover what the 29 people had chosen as their top 4 qualities during the show. 93% chose command as one of their top 4. 57% chose movement as one of their top 4. Changing speeds was 50%. Max velocity was 39%. Character was 36. Mental toughness 32. Know who you are was 32. Reading batters was 29. And sequencing was 18. So let's go through
What you need them all.
Qualities. Yeah. So we covered character a bit. One of the other qualities I picked was a command. Now, what are your thoughts on command as like a quality needed to be a successful pitcher? At what amounts do you think they need?
Well, for me, command is, obviously you've got the ability to locate. That's where the velo comes in and intertwines with command. And, how hard do you throw with the ability to command the base? If you're just throwing balls to throw hard and you're nowhere near the zone, you need to back it down and you need to have what I call the useful velocity, right? So that useful velocity helps you with your command. Look, most guys who throw hard but don't throw enough strikes, it's just because they're overthrowing the baseball. They can't control their body enough. They're moving too fast, or they're head whacking. I mean, your eyes tell a lot of tell the story, right? There's not too many head whackers that are really good pitchers, guys that can't see the target, right? So you're developing the way you move and the way you coordinate yourself to be able to see the target, right? So now if you can do all that stuff, you should command the baseball a lot better. Look, like I said, the higher you throw, then now the margin of error is better. But the margin of error is not better if you're just throwing all fastballs. If you throw all fastballs and you throw 97, and that's all you're throwing, you're going to still be in trouble because the major league hitter at some point can hit a bullet. Right now, that's where you become maybe a reliever, because now you're expecting, if you're throwing 70, 65% fastballs at 97, and that's all you've got, second, third time through,
but I've seen that in games.
Take them out of the game.
I've seen that in games. I watch many times. A guy's throwing 90, 92. He goes 6 innings. Maybe he gives up 2 runs. They bring in a reliever throwing 97 and bink out of the park. Bink out of the park. Bink.
Well, that's because he's predictable. He's throwing the same pitches in the same location.
Right. So that leads into the second.
They're sitting on fastballs.
Yeah. So that leads into the second thing. One of the next ones on the list called changing speeds. So if you don't have the elite velo, but if you have command and you can change speeds, so now what can you do?
Well, that's what I talk about on the aspect of hitting's time and pitching is disruption of timing. So now I'm changing speeds, and changing speeds does not mean fastball changeup. It can be fastball changeup, curveball, slider, split, whatever you got, something that deviates off the hitter's timing. I always tell, don't let him get in his toe hold. Don't let him just constantly stay in rhythm of putting his hand, loading and putting his foot down, loading and putting his foot down. He's on you. He's on you. He's on you. We got to find a way to get him off you so you can go back to your number one. If your number one pitch is your elevated fastball, you just can't constantly throw it. I always have this discussion about, you're not throwing your best pitch more. You're throwing your best pitch more in the opportunities that you're supposed to throw it more. Right. If you're just throwing it more, you're compromising count, you're compromising location, you're putting it in spot. If it's your slider and somebody says throw your slider more because it's your best pitch, I would say throw it more in the opportunities you're supposed to throw it. But now if you're just throwing it more and now you're laying it inside the strike zone because somebody says throw it more, I don't think that's a good thing. But I do agree when they say you should throw it more in the times that you should be throwing it. And, chase opportunities, maybe behind in the count, but ahead in the count, landing it just for a strike or just to throw it in, 2-2 breaking balls inside the strike zone when hitters have to swing are generally hangers, right? They go a long way. So you don't want them hitting slower pitches inside the strike zone that are hangers, right? But if you have to throw it more because somebody tells you to, that's not a good thing. 3-2 sliders inside the zone. Yeah, to some hitters, that's where data is great because the data will tell me what this guy does. He doesn't swing 3-2, he swings 3-2. He doesn't swing at sliders, he swings at sliders.
Yeah, that's where command reading batters comes in. And part of reading batters is, like you said, you have that advanced scouting report. You have info on the batter. You've watched video, and then you're seeing what you're seeing in front of. One of the coolest things I heard from Chad Durbin was talking about on the plane with Roy Halladay. He would sit there with 3 computers playing video of the batters he's going to be facing. And the whole flight, he's watching them at their at bats. And what he's looking for is how they react to taking a pitch in or a pitch they didn't like. Or he was looking for their reactions so that he then knew when he saw them, when he faced them, what their reaction was normal and what they were doing at that time. He could tell what he needs to do then. So that reading batters goes into you have to command to be able to execute off of what you read. You have to change speeds. And it leads into the next item in the list called movement, which I think is huge. I think they're all huge, but movement, I mean, how do you value movement in relative command and velo and change
Well,
of
that
speed?
that movement that tunnels off your fastball or off your other pitches really helps you gain that advantage to get swing and miss. If I can control my fastball, down and away or up and in, I can tunnel my breaking ball off down and away. Look, some people will say, "Hey, you don't throw fastballs down. You should just throw fastballs up and breaking balls down." But
No,
that's just leading the hitter to anything down is soft and anything up is hard. They're really good major league hitters. But if you surprise them with a couple fastballs down, they got to honor that fastball down. Now they see that pitch in that same zone. Now that breaking ball that leaks off the plate becomes a better swing and miss pitch. So movement
absolutely.
is key. Having the ability to start a fastball, maybe a 2-seamer inside, right on right, and he sees that fastball kind of inner third, and he's like, "Oh man, I got this guy." And all of a sudden, that horizontal movement creeps
Comes in.
deeper in. Now you're breaking bats, you're jamming them, hitting lazy grounders. Now like I said, there are some great hitters in the game that can really recognize these things, and they got the ability to beat the barrel to the spot. They can see, oh, there's the sinker. They read spin really good. I know one of my favorite players that I've ever been around is Marcus Semien. And he told me one time it's really hard to hit when pitchers have 2 different fastballs. But he would talk about getting into his legs more on the 2-seamer, knowing it's going to go down a little bit. So if he reads that 2-seamer, if you got some loose rotation early and he reads that 2-seamer early, he beats you to the spot. He tucks his hands in and
Well,
he can
yeah,
beat you to the spot. He's good enough, but there's a lot of guys that aren't good enough. So
yeah,
movement is very important.
yeah. Bronson talked about that a lot about throwing his fastball at different speeds. Uh, I know from another player you and I know, I won't say his name. We worked a lot on his sinker, but when he throws it another way, it becomes a runner. So I call a runner something different that runs in on the guy, a righty running in on a righty, sinker more sinking. He's trying to throw it the same way, but a little subtle difference will make it run or sink more. And that's enough, I think, to disrupt the batter too. So it's again the movement. Uh, I think matters a lot. Like if you throw sinker slider, if you're tunneling correctly, the batter is having a rough time with us. Maybe you can see the spin, maybe not.
Well, same thing with like sinker split, right? Hopefully your sinker and
Yeah,
your split have the same look to the hitter. The loose rotation and the hitter. Oh, there's the sinker. Whoops, it was the split. And you know that pairs really well in the same down and in angle, and they swing over top of it. I watched Frankie Montas do it for years, that he'd throw a sinker into a right-hander followed by a split, swing and miss. You know, when you're able to disrupt the hitter's timing, you know, I have a very hard time saying that, oh, this guy doesn't have swing and miss. He's gotten swing and miss before. What he doesn't have is the ability to execute pitches good enough to gain more swing and miss. If he could execute his pitches more, he would get swing and miss. But he can't throw a fastball up and a breaking ball down. He leaves the fastball middle in, and it looks, then he doesn't have a slider good enough to get down and way off of that. He's not living in good counts. He's always behind in the count. He's got to throw it more in the box. I always hear, why would we throw more fastballs? It's the hardest hit pitch. You know, to me, it's just like going back in the day when the National League used to strike out more hitters than the American League. Yeah, they faced the pitcher. You know, the pitcher was hitting. So if you're not going to get enough swing and miss, in my opinion, it's because you don't know how to execute your pitches and throw enough strikes and tunnel your. All this comes into play. Everybody can get swing and miss if they can do all this stuff.
Yeah, I think that's where another item on the list comes in called sequencing, because you can have command, you can know how to change speeds, have the right velo, the right movement, but the right combination matters, right? Like, can you think of different combinations that are good and then reverse them and they're not good? I could think of a few.
Yeah, I mean, that just goes right back to, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make him drink scenario of the slider after slider after slider after slider. You know, at some point in time, you get him down the way, and boom, you buzz him in, and then he's either surprised by that, or he takes it or swings and misses, and then you get him off of that. Now you got him. Now you're playing the game. Okay, what's he going to do? Is he going to come back up here? Is he going to go back down the way? He showed me that he's going to come in. Is he going to go down? You know, so you know that's how the best of the best who command the baseball have the ability to sequence and understand and read hitters. That's why they're the best.
Yeah, well, like for example, Bronson Arroyo was on the show and he was talking about, it was, I think, he was facing Chase Utley, and he was told before the game by Scott Lovecamp that I think you could get inside on Chase with a changeup. And apparently Chase Utley has a reputation of having a real quick bat, so nobody wants to do that. A righty doesn't want to go inside on. So he decided he's going to do it because no one had thrown that into him. So it was a fastball, then the changeup in, and he got him out a couple times. So that's an example of executing a sequence that would not seem to make sense, but get the good result you wanted, you know?
Well, he changed speeds in the same tunnel where Utley probably thought, there's the fastball, I'm swinging, I'm committed to it, and boom, it pulls the string on him and he gets him out.
Right. Now, Mac Jenkins was talking about the other day in reading batters, we're talking about, say you throw the ball inside on the black to a righty on righty, and he swings and he fouls it off. Right? He fouls it to the first base side, right? Now, if you throw that guy a changeup in that same location, you're doing him a favor. You're speeding up his bat and he's going to hit it, right? So that's an example of a sequence that's wrong. Whereas opposed to, he would throw a fastball, the same fastball, but in further. You know, so like the sequence matters, you know, what you throw, right?
Yeah, and then for me, you got to have common knowledge of you know, I always hear, well, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go fastball, slider, and blah blah blah. You know, my whole thing is you always have an option. That's where the reading batters comes into play and doing what you actually do. Look, for years, and this is no secret, a lot of teams and a lot of coaches at minor leagues have 0-2, go inside. 0-2, go inside, right? So
well, I think that depends, you know.
Well, that's what we taught pitchers for years. 0-2, go inside, get off the plate. But here's my story: is you tell a guy, okay, 0-2, I want you to go in today. First 2 or 3 hitters, I want to see you do it. Elevated fastball, foul ball, breaking ball down the way, base hit. And my point is they didn't execute the pitch in at all, so your sequencing and your ideas sometimes can only be as good as you executed the previous pitch.
Your
So
command.
yeah, and now we're back to command again. Like, hey, look, we're talking about pushing the guy to open up the outer part of the plate.
Right.
Your intent, your thought was correct. You tried to go in, but you missed up. Then you went slider away. You missed up for a foul ball. Then you went slider away and gave up a base hit. You never pushed him back. So I would always tell our guys, look, if you're trying to go in and you miss up for a foul ball, you get another free opportunity to go back inside again, run one in, and open up the plate. Or you can run one in and double up back inside. So you're still playing that cat and mouse game.
Yeah, and again, like we talked about, to execute that kind of plan, they have to have command. They have to read batters. They need to change speeds. It's like the items on that list of 9. They kind of all tie in, and one of the other ones that I think is so important is know who you are. And what I mean by that is when a player is say he's drafted because he throws a great slider or something, he's got to know what made him good and make that great. And if he's around guys who are throwing 100, he can't try to be like that guy. He's got to try to be him. Like, what's your take on doing what your gift is to doing that great?
I think you nail it. Not only do the pitchers have to know who they are, but everybody involved with that pitcher has to know who that
That's
pitcher is.
That's a great
because
point.
what happens is, and look, I love data. I love technology. I think it's awesome. I've been
Well,
dealing
you see
with
the
it.
books. I'm into data as well, but I'm in agreement with you.
I mean, I'm in an organization that we started all this right with Moneyball.
Yeah.
So for my 22 years in this organization, that's all I'm doing is compiling and collecting the data. But I'm also smart enough to know if you give heavy data to a guy who's incapable of doing it, you're going to weed him out way sooner than later. If you're trying to create a pitcher based on movement who hasn't have a good enough delivery yet, it ain't going to work, right? So what I want you to do, first of all, is understand how you move. How do you, some guys don't turn well one way, they turn better another way. Some guys are dropping drives. Some guys are tall and fall. And we're in an industry right now where younger kids are being cookie cut right away to hip hinge and get deep on the backside.
Yeah.
And that is not the way they should be moving at all. But because of what a number says that an elite guy does, we try to match that, or people try to match that. You got guys throwing. Look, I watch a lot of, I talk to a lot of my buddies that coach college, and they're like, yeah, this guy's got 24 inches of vert and 23 inches of vert. And I'm like, geez, that's amazing. How hard is he throwing? 86. So it plays a big role. Well, that vert at 86 isn't going to play at the big league level unless he knows how to command the baseball. Not many big league pitchers are over 20, right? I think average is like 17. So if you're trying to, produce this pitcher to do elite things who's incapable of doing elite things, back whipping two seamers, front door and cutters, who can't even throw enough strikes, I think we're doing these guys a disservice. So you got to know who they are, let them graduate from who they are, and then we go up to another step. And that's what I talked to you earlier, Wayne, about time. If I know time, when is this guy's estimated time of arrival to the varsity team? It's his junior year. Okay, well, his sophomore year, I need him in the summertime to really work on this. Or a freshman in college, when do you expect him to really pitch? I want this guy pitching a lot of innings his sophomore year. All right, well, what are we going to do about it his freshman year? Is he just going to pitch on Tuesdays? That's why I encouraged, my nephew's a college coach at D2, and I'm like, you got 20 pitchers, but only 12 of them are going to pitch. What are you going to do with the other 8? They got to throw in inter squad. If they're freshmen, get them throwing in inter squad games. Get them facing the hitters on Wednesday. No, you already know they might not they're probably not pitching on Friday or Saturday because they're not one of your top 12. But work with them. Estimated time of arrival. You know, you got guys in college that I look up, and the guy throwing 4 years and 36 innings. You can't get any better throwing 36 innings unless you're doing these things. So you need to know who they are. You need to know who they are, and you need, if possible, have an estimated time of arrival so you can have a divisive or a really good development plan for that pitcher.
Absolutely. Like I like to give car analogies. Like if you had a Hummer, you're not going to put Ferrari tires on it. It's not going to do you any good. And if you had a Ferrari, you're not putting Hummer tires on it. It's like you got to know what that car is geared for and maximize that. You're going to put the tires on the car that are for what that car is meant to do. So if the car is meant to go off road, you put off road tires on it. If the car is meant to ride on a racetrack, put racing tires on it. And so what I mean by that.
Well, Rick Peterson, a great pitching coach in his day, the master of biomechanics, in my opinion, the first guy that really brought the biomechanics into this baseball world with Andrews and Fleissig at ASMI when he got to coach in Birmingham for the White Sox in the 80s, and when they started doing all their research. The first time I met him and just sitting around and listening to him talk, that's the same analogies he would use. Like see these guys jacking up their trucks, putting these monster tires on these trucks. If the axle doesn't support the tires, then you're going to wear it out and break down. And that is what's happening. You know, we talk about injuries in this game, and in my opinion, what are we doing? We're doing more. Right? Everybody's doing more. There's more weight training. There's more arm care. There's more throwing. There's plyo ball throwing, which is great. But the more you do, obviously, the more wear and tear you're going to put on something. So, the more you drive the car at some point in time, if you're not servicing it, that's why you need to have a great strength and conditioning staff and a great athletic training staff, which I'm fortunate. You know, our guys are amazing, and they push for this prehab and rehab. You know, you got to change the tires every now and then. That's doing your arm care. That's doing all this stuff. And sometimes these kids just don't have time to do this. They're not doing this. And that's why right now, I just saw an article yesterday that more teenage kids are having Tommy John than professional pitchers. So we're not only putting more wear and tear on them, but are they doing the prehab, the rehab? And, you know, you're building muscle. You know, I've always heard that it can take up to 10 times as long for the ligaments and the tendons to support that developing muscle. So if you're getting jacked one off season and you pick up 30 pounds and it's rock solid muscle, and you're going to go into the season, your ligaments and your tendons, and you know, I don't know if this is 100% right, but this is what I've always heard through research, that it could take up to 10 times. So if you're that kid that it takes 10 times longer for those ligaments and those tendons to develop from that developing muscle, you're going to be at risk for a while.
I was thinking of it a little bit different. Gil Patterson, our mutual friend. Gil is awesome. He was talking about Roy Halladay when he was the pitching coach for Roy Halladay, I think in Expos or something. He said he had the highest ERA of any pitcher with over 100 innings, and he got sent down.
The Toronto Blue Jays.
Oh, the Blue Jays.
Yep.
And then what Roy did was they lowered his slot from up high to 3/4. He did some work with Dorfman on mental skills. And it went from throwing 98 to throwing like 94. He went away from trying to just throw really hard and went back to pitching. So what I'm getting at is these guys are chasing velo, and you and I know that that's one part of the equation. And sometimes you don't need to throw 98. You could throw 95 and have other qualities and outpitch guys. And what I mean by outpitch, meaning win more games. And so I think if they're pushing always for higher velo, they're not going to get that kind of result. And they're going to get guys that are breaking down sooner because they're redlining all the time. They're not trying to be a starter to go the most innings, right?
Yeah, I think, I think chasing velo is a term that's dangerous. Where I'd rather say chase your maximum potential. If you're getting out there, you're putting yourself in a good physical shape, conditioning. Right now I see the best athletes in the world. What they eat is amazing. Back in my day, we went to the Waffle House, we went to Pizza
Oh
Hut,
no,
we went to
you
Burger
should
King.
see what they eat. I mean, I'm sure you do, but in the minor leagues, they treat these guys great. But
Yeah, it's
I
way
like,
better now. What now listen, you put bad gas in a car, that car ain't gonna run as well. You put good food in your body, recovery, all these things, this is what the great athletes do. They prepare their body, they get their bodies in the best shape mentally, physically, emotionally. They eat well, they do all this stuff
they
well
sleep
to
well.
help performance. They sleep
Yeah.
well. They have the best care, and so now that should be the arm care, the strength and conditioning program. That should be leading us into your max useful velocity.
Yeah. Well, that also leads us back into the character thing, where character,
That's a good one. Yeah, you're
yeah,
coming
it
on.
does because like Bronson Arroyo was known for being a great teammate. My son had did an interview about how to be a good teammate, how he learned from DBU, and how being a good teammate and cheering on and supporting your fellow teammates, whether pitchers or not, ultimately helps you too. So it helps your mental health because in baseball, it's a grind. It's hard sometimes, and if you're focused only on you, you're going to have these ups and downs. And you're going to have a horrible time. But if you can find a way to find success in someone else and cheer them that they did well or help them, it feeds into your mental health wellness, right?
Yeah, when one thing for me, and Brian Sweeney, the pitching coach at Kansas City, we were at lunch this off season, and we were talking about my nephew, and my nephew, all he did was tinker, 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 and my nephew would admit it. And Brian said, like, you never had any freedom, and that's a great way of you know saying that he never got to get on the mound and just go out, compete, and have fun, and be relaxed, because he was always thinking about, well, if I don't do this with my glove side, if I don't do this with my backside.
Yeah, you
So
can't do that.
how can you do all this? Try to add the elements of pitching. How can you locate how can you think about? So when I'm trying to engineer a pitcher, I try to reverse engineer it from the plate. I'm thinking about, okay, give me a fastball down and away, knowing that generally you stick a fastball down and away, you probably moved pretty good. How did you do that? So when I'm building guys and trying to help them, some don't like it because they'll, oh, what's my vert? What's my vert? What's my vert? Oh, what's my horizontal? What's my horizontal? What I'm trying to do is put their body into position to make a quality strike, and boom, there's your vert. There's your horizontal. There's your movement. I think what's happening in the game a lot is because we have the TrackMans and because we have all the data, we're just chasing this number, right? And
Yeah.
the players create the number doesn't create the player. It's very hard for a player. Once he starts chasing the vert, I see forearm fly out. I see head wax. I see underneath balls. I don't see the delivery moving good enough to execute pitches. Hey, look, I threw a 21-inch vert at 59 miles an hour this year. I'm not a major league pitcher. Okay. I know how to do it. I know how to manipulate it. I can forearm fly out, spin a horizontal slider at 23. I'm not a major league pitcher either, with my slider. I can manipulate and create, but it might not be good enough because I'm flying out. I'm putting myself at risk for injury. I'm exposing the ball to the hitter. So there's all these other different elements that no one wants to talk about because it's hard to quantify.
Well, I agree with you 100%. And remember I talked about that pitcher who was getting the easy ground ball double plays? And it's because he always worked on trying to get just that much movement. He's not trying to get a foot of movement. He's trying to get just enough to get just off the bat. A big movement, I think batters see easy. And that little bit of movement, if you talk about Mariano Rivera, right? He was not a strikeout pitcher. He was the greatest closer. Well, Wagner might argue against it, but Wagner and him were the greatest closers of all time, right? But he's not a strikeout pitcher. He was working on getting just off the bat. He was getting weak contact, and it was phenomenal. So I don't understand how people can know that he was one of the greatest closers of all time, yet for even relievers or closers, they're choosing guys that will only strike out. I think it's because they don't believe in their infielders or their fielders being able to catch a ball.
Well, that goes back to what I said, the outcomes, right? Ball and play could have a bad outcome. A swing and miss.
I know, but here you got a guy. But here you got a guy who developed a pitch that was for weak contact, just off the bat, have phenomenal success. And yet,
yeah, I'm not denying you. I'm not denying that.
I'm saying, why isn't that guy's style the standard?
Because we've gone into a thought process that the swing and miss is really important.
Right, because they've gone into the process where the data tells them if I throw this hard and I get this great movement, it's going to be better. But no, it's actually just you want just enough movement to have weak contact, like hitting the dirt, you know.
Well, it's to the point where, like I said earlier, I still got to get 2/3 of my outs in a baseball game, probably by non-way of strikeout. And hopefully that comes from soft contact. So if you're going to chase 1/3 of your outs constantly on swing and miss, you could hurt people. You could do a lot of damage. But like you said earlier too, your bullpen guys should probably be the guys that have the ability to get more swing and miss. So if you have your starter goes out there and he goes 5 or 6 and punches out 4 or 5 and walks 1 or what I like is the walk to strikeout separation, right? If you're going to walk 5 guys in a game, you better punch out 10 per 9, right? If you're going to walk 2 guys, you can punch out 5, right? So that separation in between, when you see a guy who punches out 9 and walks 6, that's a danger. Just he gets a lot of strikeouts. Yeah, that's just how he gets his out. But he's got a lot of guys on base. He's giving you these gray hairs right here, and it's really hard to sit on the bench with that guy. But that's where we're all chasing the dominant guy, right? Whether it's good or bad, you want a guy to come in and have nasty stuff. And like I said, though, if you have good enough stuff and you can locate and execute, you're going to get swing and miss. Now we got to find those guys that can do all this stuff.
No, but that's the point I'm getting at. That's the tough part. Like, who's the dominant pitcher? To me, the dominant pitcher is the guy who gets the most outs with the least amount of runs given up, not the guy who strikes out the most guys.
And who shows up in 75 games a year.
Yeah, that's the
reliever.
Right. Dan Duquette on the show said that the best ability is availability.
Which is a great point. We had Petit, and Petit pitched in 75 to 80 games a year. Every day, how you feeling? He gave me that thumbs up. And, for me, his role was huge. A guy that could take the ball in the 6th or 7th or whenever we needed him and could give the ball to the next guy. I think, I go back to, what do we value? We started wins, we started outs. How are we going to get our outs? We're going to locate, change speeds. We're going to have movement. We're going to have velocity. So all these things are part of that pyramid. We're going to start out at the bottom of the pyramid by being a good mover, by having a good, solid, repeatable delivery for you, not cookie cut for him, but cookie cut for you. And that's where you talked earlier about know who you are. Am I a drop and drive guy? There is such thing, believe it or not, as tall and fall guys. There is. So when you take a tall and fall guy and you get him to drop and drive, I'm 6'5". I'm not a drop and drive guy. I've had coaches say, hey, get down on your legs more. dude, that doesn't feel good. That hurts. And you know what happened to me? I lost the strike zone because of it. I'm not blaming anybody because I listened. That's why I want our guys to be communicative with me. Don't blame me. It's your career, but use me as that resource. If you don't like what we're trying to accomplish, you need to say something. And some guys, and it just happens. Some guys won't say it and they'll blame you for having a bad year. And then some guys will say, oh, that was great. But the guys that you want are the communicative guys that take ownership. And if they're not doing it the way you want, that's okay. What you have to do is you have to be there for them, but you have to give them the reality of what's going on. I've had plenty of, I'm pitching really good, Emo. I'm pitching really good. No, you're not. Your FIP is terrible. Your ERA is terrible, and you're not pitching good. Well, my spin rate is this, and that doesn't equate to help us. I don't value. I value it. Yeah, I value it. I value it all, but I don't value the spin rate or the velocity of a pitch if it's not a strike. So if it's a strike and it's playable, boom, that's what I value, and that's what's good.
Yeah, Chad Durbin was talking about. I asked him, "What did you see in the greatest coaches that you've had? What was quality?" And he was talking about Jim Leland. He said he was just a guy who was straight up honest with you. He'll tell you just like it is. He likes you. He wants to help you, but he's going to tell you the truth. And he says, those kind of guys, you may get a little mad at them at first because they tell you the truth, but later on, you'll think, God, that was a great coach because he's being honest with me. He's not sugarcoating, and that's why he's in the Hall of Fame now. So I think that's really good.
I've had plenty of players who've said to me 5 and 6, 3 and 4 years later, they've come over and said, man, I should have done that 5 or 6 years ago, or I should have listened more. I'm sorry, I was hard-headed. But hopefully the players, hopefully our guys understand that I don't work for you, you don't work for me. We work together to get you to be the best pitcher that you could possibly be. And that's, the communication I need. I don't need, no one needs backstabbing or blame. But what we need is, hey, how can we help you? How can we fix you? How can we stay away from you? Sometimes good coaching is no coaching. Some guys you just stay away from. I had a guy come up to me, how come you never talk to me? I'm like, dude, you got a 1.75 ERA, you're dealing. I'm sorry that I'm not talking to you, but I don't want to bother you. I don't want to disrupt what you're doing. You're doing fine. But some players need that. They need Chad
Durbin talked about that too. He said one of his coaches would come by and just say, "What's up, Durbs?" Because that's all he needed. But other guys, he'd have to tell him, "Hey, you're doing great today. You with this." As a coach, I think Dan Hefner talked about that too. I was asking him if you talked about the recent World Series and you had Bochy and you had Baker win World Series with teams that were already in place, that the ingredients were there, but the mixture was wrong. And I said, what made them be able to coalesce all of that into a winning team? And he was talking about the ability to read what their players needed, to give them what they needed, to be a kind of a.
You're the bartender, right? You're kind of listening and solving problems or helping solving problems. You're the dad. You're the uncle. As a coach, you play so many roles in helping players. Some guys you're the uncle. Some guys you're the dad. Some guys you got to kick around, but hopefully if you build that relationship, they understand that it's for the best. That look, I love every single guy I've ever had. Some of them were tougher to deal with than others because they had a strong opinion about themselves, but I respected them because they had this opinion about themselves. If I care more about their career than they care more about their career, then we're done anyways. So I want them to care about their career, understand their career. What I want to be a part of is helping them become the best version of themselves. And when you could do that, whether it's big data, smaller data, some guys, I tell you, I go in the meeting, the start and give the scouting report. And it's like, hey, just get ahead. Don't have to throw a strike two, a 3-2 down the middle. You can nibble the guy's swings all day long. A hard away, soft away, hard in, soft away. Abuse your changeup to this guy. Throw more breakers to this guy. Set up the breaking ball to this guy. And some guys, you go in and like, okay, look, we're going to start them out. You can start them out down and away with either fastball, breaking ball. You should push them off the plate up and in with a fastball. Go right back to your breaking ball, or read the situation if you're behind and you need to paint a fastball. Look, the fastball, everybody knows the fastball is the hardest hit because we got to throw it more behind in the count. And guys like don't command it as good. They throw it in that circle. So it's going to show up. That was my point I was going to make about the National League having more strikeouts because they facing the pitcher, right? So every year they throw more fastballs in the National League. Yeah, because they're facing the pitcher. They got more strikeouts in the National League. Yeah, because they're facing the pitcher. I can't believe we've never talked about that. So the fastball is hit the hardest. Yeah, because we're behind the count more, and we just can't lay in a lazy breaking ball, or we can't throw a swing and miss. So we got to throw the fastball. So statistically, it's going to show up as a harder hit ball, and maybe the other metrics are going to show up that it's not a great pitch.
Oh, I think the other thing too is that when I worked on command with my son, we worked on command of all his pitches. When I had that strike zone, like you see back here, it was not just for fastballs. We would pick out a square for a slider, for a changeup, for a curveball. So I think if guys are working on command, even if it's command of the zone, only with their fastballs, like, well, you should work on command, pinpoint command with all your pitches.
Well, look, where's your breaking ball going to go? Your breaking ball is going to spin down and away to the glove side. You're going to throw it below the zone, down and under the glove side, and then you're going to backdoor it. Then you're going to backdoor it. You really have three areas for your breaking ball, right? Down and away glove side, down below glove side, and backdoor to the arm side. Then your fastball, man, you got a plethora of areas to go to. You got up and in, you got up and away, you got in off, you got away off, you got below, you got below the zone.
I can remember him throwing curveballs that were like a slur, and he would start them so far in that it looked like it was going to hit the batter. The batter would jump out of the box and it would land for a strike in the middle.
That's where data really, really helps you out. Like, boom, how big of a breaking ball do you have? Look, there was times where people would say, oh, you can't throw your breaking ball in right on right. And I'm like, no, you can't throw the backup breaking ball where you're trying to throw it down and away and it comes back.
Yeah,
that's when you're in trouble. But if your intended target has the break and it's in at the hitter, then it's a good pitch. It's the lazy backup breaking ball that's bad. Then you got to command it with the intended shape that it's supposed to have. There's a couple teams that do a great job of throwing that breaking ball in on right-handers, right on right or left on left, and they get them to back off. But like I said, it's the ones that you're trying to throw down the way that you leave in that show up analytically that say, oh, don't throw that breaking ball inside to a right-hander. No, don't throw the lazy breaking ball inside to the right-hander.
Well, that's a good point you bring up, because I've thought about this too. It's like when they give a weight on a certain pitch and location, I don't think that's right, because if they haven't taken into account the pitch before it that set it up, it's like so. For example, if you say, okay, it's 90% strikeouts on pitches on fastballs into a righty, so that's an elite pitch into the righty. I'm like, well, wait a minute, what pitch was thrown before it? Because I think if another pitch was thrown before it, it might have a different effect. So I think you have to, if you weight a pitch at its stuff plus number, it has to be on with the pitch that came before it and the location of that pitch, right?
Yeah, I think it all intertwines. Look, there's some, sometimes I'll that pitch is useless. Right. Well, it's not useless if the hitter is reacting or doing something. If you're throwing a fastball in and he's moving and flinching, I don't think it's a useless pitch. I think we've done something. If we've thrown a ball over the catcher's head and the hitter steps into his toe hole and immediately doesn't react to anything, knows it's a ball right out of your hand, yes, that's probably a useless pitch, right? So, you know, and I agree, and I chase that a lot. What did we throw before to get the out on the next pitch? You know, and a lot of that is like, hey guys, you get ahead, look at the data, look at what we're doing. Boom, this is the pitch you should be throwing ahead. Like a lot of times, you know, a lot of guys, look, in baseball, we're living in a 1-1 count a lot. Why? Because we get ahead and we throw the next pitch in the dirt. And that's just what's happening. So sometimes that's just useless because good hitters may not be swinging at balls in the dirt, right? So maybe you got to do something different to this certain hitter. There's certain hitters in the big leagues that you get ahead, you go right to the breaking balls. They can't lay off of them, and that's what I talked about with Trout earlier in this, is that the good hitters take what you give them. You know, Trout, he has negative swing numbers in every count. He's below average swing numbers in every single count. For me, he's patient. He's very selective. He's going to hit pitches inside his zone. The only time he doesn't chase or he chases is when he feels like, hey, I like to play some baseball too. No one's throwing me a strike today, so I'm gonna expand my zone because I'd like to play. And so he gets a little eager because he has to, because it's boring if you, right, for Mike Trout, if he just stands there and you don't throw him a strike, right? So you know, at times he chases because he wants to play baseball. And
well, wasn't Yogi Berra one of the best at swinging at bad pitches and getting amazing results? You know,
that's way before my time, Big Wayne. I can tell you because I faced Vladimir Guerrero in the minor leagues that I threw Vladdy in Harrisburg a back foot fastball. I yanked it right out of my hand, and I'm like, oh man, that's a bad pitch. Next thing I know, I'm looking up and that thing's in center field, you know, and then you know, years later, following one of the greatest hitters of all time, you know, you always hear Vladdy Guerrero, a good bad ball hitter, and you know, he had the ability
also,
to put the bat on the ball.
yeah. Also, if you look at in pitch grader, I have that thing called the tendencies, right? And in tendencies, it shows you what the tendencies are based upon the count and the pitch. So I can pick the previous pitch and know what the tendency was with the next pitch, so that I can tell whether that fastball in was effective because it was set up by this pitch or not.
Well,
And I think that's
we're right around 49% fastball usage in the big leagues. I can say when you get ahead, sliders are coming. You know, that's just what's going on in the game. It's not, it's everybody knows, you know, you get ahead, you don't want to give up a good center cut mistake fastball. You want them reaching for breaking balls if you can. And the good guys with good breaking balls get them swinging, and the guys with average breaking balls have to set it up more.
no, but I think that ties back into what we talked, one of the items in the list too, on changing speeds. Because if you have fastballs at over 50%, I don't think you're changing speeds enough. So that if you have fastballs at below 50, I think to me that means you're changing speeds enough. You know, what do you think?
Well, first of all, you got to throw enough strikes to, if you get a big leaguer, you know, that's one of the things I really look at when we call up a big leaguer. I look at strikes with his fastball. And the reason why I look at strikes with his fastball is because I know that it might go down a little bit in the big leagues. And but if it's not enough strikes with his fastball, they're not going to swing at the off-speed pitches that much because they don't have to honor the fastball, so they can look at the off-speed pitches, and they're not going to chase them if they're balls because they're elite hitters. So what I want guys, I don't care what your usage of your fastball is. I really don't. But I want it to be effective when you use it at 66% or above, or 65% or above. You can throw 40% fastballs, but if you could throw 65% strikes or above, hitters have to honor your fastball. But
I think that's with every pitch you throw, I think you have to do that way. Yeah.
Right, but if you throw 50% fastballs at 48% strikes. They're not looking for your fastball. Now, 48 is a real low number, but let's say 58. That's a low number. We're talking 100 pitches, and you throw or percentage of your fastball. If your fastball is at like 58, 59% strikes, you're not a good strike thrower with your fastball.
Well, that's how
You can't
Tim
command it
Hires.
very well if you can't throw enough strikes.
Yeah, well, Tim Hires was talking about that kind of thing too, where batters they're kind of trying to eliminate pitches. So, like you said, if the guy's only throwing 48% strikes with his fastball, the batter's going to try to eliminate that pitch, right?
Ideally, okay, you could have you're a 3-pitch guy. You throw now. You're probably going to throw more fastballs as a starter. We're talking around 50%. Why? Because it should be the best pitch that you can command when you need it, right? So if you throw your fastball at 50 and your other 2 pitches at 25 and 25, you got them thinking, what's he going to throw? Now, if you're a reliever, totally different story, right? If your slider is nasty and it's great, that usage of your slider, because you're only going to throw 17, 18 pitches, you might be throwing 55, 60% sliders. But what's happening is, when you get starters throwing 55 to 60% sliders, and then now they got to flip lineups and the hitters keep seeing it and it's a ball, you're running deep counts, you're running a high pitch count, you're out of the game. But if but hold on, your strategy may be just get them through 2 times through the order. We don't know the other team's strategy. Some teams have that strategy.
But see, if you have a starter throwing 55% sliders with the mindset of a reliever, that's going to be the problem. If he has a mindset of I want weak contact, he'll get good results. I've seen it happen. A pitcher that had great results, he's not trying to strike them out. He gets a lot of strikeouts, but his goal is to get the out quick. Weak contact. If the starters
at one point during the season, I looked up the numbers. The top 10 strikeout pitchers in the league, when they used their fastball, was over 67% for strikes. When they used it. So if they only use it 50% of the time, but at 70% strikes, that's 35 strikes out of 100 pitches, good. Right? That's 35 strikes with their fastball, right? So, if they use it, 40% of the time at 60% of the strikes, that's 40% strikes, and you do the math on 60% of 40, that might not be enough fastball usage because you don't throw enough, you don't get enough balls in play, you don't bail yourself out. Sometimes you got to have something to bail yourself out. I don't have command, I got to change speeds. The changeup, some guys don't like to change up that much anymore because you can hit it. Well, that's the bailout pitch, and when you're elite, when we have guys that are elite in this league, they don't have to throw changeups. Their other stuff's just too hard to hit. But when you don't have that elite fastball, breaking ball combo, then you probably need the scarcity principle and have more pitches and to be able to throw a curveball and slider and sprinkle in the change as a bailout pitch. And fastball command, for that matter, is a bailout pitch as well. Cutter's a bailout pitch. You fall behind, throw the contact cutter.
That's the kind of pitching I like because I think the odds are in your favor. Instead of relying only on one pitch, a really fast fastball, and overpowering guys, which I think guys are able to hit very fast pitches now. I think if you have a lot of pitches that you can command, the odds are in your favor to succeed.
Yeah, if you can command a breaking ball down and away and a fastball up and in, you're probably going to be pretty decent in the level that you're pitching at relative to the velocity that you have. It's a good 2-pitch mix, up and in, down and away. It's hard, it's soft. If you could only throw it in one area with the fastball and one area with the breaking ball, I'd throw up and in and down and away with the fastball and the breaking ball. But the best hitters in the world, and you're a starter trying to flip lineups a third time through to save the rest of your staff in the long haul, that's not a good recipe for success.
Yeah, well, again, if the batter has to think that you can throw a strike with any of your pitches at any time, it makes them all more effective too, right?
Yeah, I mean, if we go over time and we do the run the data, the guys who have been sustainable and lasted in this league are probably one of the best strike throwers, no matter what their stuff looks like. Petit pitched over 10 years in the big leagues without electric stuff, but had great command. Now he had other qualities. He changed speeds really well. He had great extension numbers, so he had a lot of other qualities. But he was a sustainable 10-year big leaguer. Why? Because he threw a bunch of strikes, and not just with the fastball, with all his pitches. So,
Yeah.
you know, what you want is your fastball in the high 60s percentage of strikes, which means you probably have some command, you probably get some swing and miss, and your breaking balls in the middle, your breaking balls in the middle 60s, meaning the same. You can throw it for a strike and you can get chase. It's when you have, you look up and your 58% strikes with your slider, it's probably not enough to be sustainable to keep running you out there game after game. That's just the reality of it. I mean, we can run the numbers and say, hey, look, you just don't throw enough strikes. I mean, that's what happens a lot of the time. Is the first thing we say to guys is you need to throw more strikes, just strikes first, and then we start working on the other intangibles.
Yeah, and if they have the good movement and mixing pitches and changing speeds, they can throw strikes without giving up damage. I think a
Yeah.
lot of guys are afraid to throw in the zone because they're afraid of giving up damage. You know.
Well,
Now,
some that's where the sequencing has to come in, because maybe their stuff isn't good enough or their command isn't good enough. Hey, yeah, I can't throw this fastball right down the middle, but you can throw the fastball down the middle if you've been changing speeds and moving the ball around. That's the element of surprise. I mean, you'd be surprised, the balls closer to the middle are the most damaged balls. But obviously, you take first pitch strikes, for instance. Relative in general, between 92 and 94% of the time, the ball is not put in play. All right. So the ball is put in play, depending on the year, between 6 and 8% of the time on the first pitch. That's it. So, and at one point in time, the batting average was 339 on the first pitch. Okay. So 339 is going to scare a lot of people away. Oh my God, the batting average is 339 on the first pitch. But only 6 to 8% of those first pitches are put in play. So it's telling you, hey, dude, throw it a strike. Just throw a strike first. Be good enough to say, here, throw a good strike. Now, that's with all your pitches. Don't just be predictable and throw predictable heaters.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I didn't get to ask you this on the show that you were on, but what was the best baseball advice you ever got?
Throw it over the white thing.
And what would be your advice to, say, a high school or a college pitcher that's trying to train and he wants to be a pro pitcher? What would you tell a guy like that? Because they're seeing all kinds of things advertised.
Throw it over the white thing. let's throw it over the white thing first, and then we can start building your core principles and your data. If you can't throw it over the white thing, whether it's mentally or physically, then I just, how can you play the game, right? You look at all these guys. Here's what happens, Wayne, is all these guys, they signed a pro ball, they signed a college, yeah, because we love the velo, right? And our egos as coaches is like, I can get this guy to throw strikes. I can get this guy to throw strikes. And are you willing to really work at it with this guy? Are you willing to put in the time, the way he moves, the mental training, as we talked about, understanding command? Are we willing to do this? I hope so, right? But sometimes it just doesn't happen. It's really hard for me to take a guy who can't throw strikes in his own delivery, what his motor preferences are, how he's come up and done it, right? And change him to do something totally different, right? And I'm talking about, like older pro guys, right? But a guy who throws strikes in general, enough and gets hit around a little bit, those are the guys we can start moving around and changing arm angles with, because they have this. They have the ability to make adjustments. Your son, he pounds the zone. He throws a ton of strikes. He could probably throw it behind his back right now. He could probably say, hey, Sean, throw a sidearm here, and he'll throw a strike, because he has that mental toughness and that ability to put the hand in the spot and to throw a strike. Some just don't have it.
But the way he got that was the reason I came up with that target. I had made a manual version. And from when he first started pitching, he threw to that target.
That's what I'm saying about work, about putting the time and effort into, like, hey, let's do this first. Let's do this.
He put a lot of work in, yeah.
Yeah, let's do this first. Let's get on the mound. And the plate is 60 feet 6 inches from the front of the rubber to the back corner of home plate. Let's move it up at 45 feet for a week, and let's see how many times you can hit the target. Hit the target, hit the target, hit the target. All right, let's move it back to 50 feet. Hit the target, hit the target, hit the target. Let's move it back to 60 feet 6 inches and hit the target.
I used to do a thing where it'd make him earn the mound back. If it was all over the place, okay, we move in like 10 feet. He would throw it, hit the spot. Okay, now we can move at 5. He would have to earn his way back to the mound. And like you said, he put the work in, and he really worked at it, and that's how he got to be how good he is. But again, the focus was on a target and not just throwing to the side of a barn.
Are you gonna have a 6-year-old shoot jumpers from an NBA 3-point line, or are you gonna have him set up underneath the hoop to work on his shot first?
Absolutely.
He's not gonna make, maybe he gets lucky 1 out of 10 or 2 out of 10 throwing it there with bad form, chucking it up there. He's going to get underneath the hoop, work on his jumper, and then back himself up. And then when he can find his range, boom, now he starts drilling NBA threes.
Yeah, and Bronson Arroyo was talking about what he did when he was a kid. He had a bucket that his father had cemented a tire in, so it was standing up. And he just threw into the tire. So when he had a fixed target that didn't move, it wasn't a big target, so he had to get in the middle. And he said when he was in the pros, his warm-ups were he tried to throw soft at first in a bullpen. So he would work on throwing his fastball to a spot as easy as it could, even if it would look like an arc. And then he would gradually build up the speed hitting that spot. And it gave him feel for the pitch, but also it actually gave him 2 pitches on that fastball. He had a slow fastball and a fast fastball.
Music to my ears, Wayne. I still do that with guys today. Come show up in Oakland and you'll see guys throwing 45 feet off the mound, just trying to feel themselves, develop themselves.
Yeah, get that feel for it, right?
I can start, feeling myself, and then I can start throwing harder. Look, the best of the best train themselves to compete in games and throw strikes, and then that velo hopefully builds up. That's what you want. That's ideally what you want to have, is that useful velocity. But the useful velocity won't play if you don't have command, right? So you got to have command, change of speeds, movement, velocity. Now you can intertwine those a little bit depending on who your profile is. But you want to throw 97 and you want to throw it off the backstop, it's really hard for me to want to put you in a game.
I think there's one other thing I could have put on the list, and I want to see what items you would put on the list too, is feel, meaning that most pitchers, after they throw, if it went wrong or something, they kind of with their fingers, they kind of feel like it didn't feel right. Right? You know what I'm talking about. So it's a feel kind of thing. They feel it off the fingertips. Right?
Well, I've seen guys, and not to name names, but I've had a guy where I'm like, show me your 4-seam fastball, and he's got 3 fingers on it, and
that works for him.
Then I showed him a 2-seamer, and he puts 2 fingers on it. So in reality, he started throwing more fastballs with his 2-seamer, throwing harder with the 2-seamer because he was staying behind it and threw the ball better, where that 3rd finger was killing some speed. And then eventually he was able to feel the ball better, tuck that ring finger in, get back to a traditional four-seamer, stay in the middle of the ball, stay behind the ball, create a little bit more carry. And now he's not with us anymore, but I see his velo has jumped up a little bit, and that's good. You know, he hasn't pitched as great as I would like to hope for him, but he's still great.
So on the list of 9 that I have, what would be some that you would add to that list? I know you'd mentioned a few times that I didn't have one item that you kind of like.
You know, I think those are perfect, to be honest with you. I have effort level as a an element for me, and that's to help guys understand how to control their body down the slope of the mound, right?
That's
You know, your
important.
mechanics. Are you timed up? Are you synced up? Where's your effort level today? Can you go out in a game? And you know, the old saying was, if I can move at 90%, I'm pretty much timed up to throw at 100% of my max velocity, right? So there's some days where, can I time myself up in the playing catch play? Can I get my arm up during catch play? What's my effort level where I can be in a proper position today? So effort level is important to me as well, right? We're just pulling all these things. What is his profile? What do you value? Hey, look, this is what I value. It may not be what other coaches or other organizations in colleges they value. This is what I value as being the most successful pitchers are, you know, you got to be able to command. And whatever command means at the beginning, it's just, you got to throw it in the box. You got to throw a strike when you need to. And then
Man, the strike zone. Yeah.
then you can take it to a whole nother level. You gotta be able to change speeds. You can't be predictable and just constantly throw the same pitch over and over and over and over and over again. And yes, the velocity needs to show up relative to your league. It's probably really hard for a guy to throw 85, 86 nowadays at the major league level. Even if he can command it, that velocity isn't relative really to the rest of the league. So it's hard. So, you know,
Unless he's Jamie Moyer, right?
yeah, unless you're a sidearm guy, an angle guy doing something different. But there's not very many starters 85, 86
That's right.
anymore. You know, Granke, I've seen him throw some fastballs 85, but that guy's pulling strings. His changeup's 85 too with dive bomb. And his intelligence is out there through the roof, and he's mastermind out there. But he's an outlier. There's not very many of those type of
Yeah.
guys. So,
Well, the point I'm making is, like, in the beginning, the book I just published on Amazon called Pitching Command. There's a thing in there from it resembles MLB The Show, the video game, and it has a picture there and all the different levels of qualities that we're talking about, and how you got to raise them up. And what I'm always telling people is that, again, all those qualities you want to raise up. Now, again, you want to raise them up for what reason? To win games. How do you win games?
in games.
You win at bats, right? You win the pitch. So when we think of these things, what makes a pitcher successful, or what qualities would we pick for that pitcher? To me, it always goes back to that first principles kind of idea, which is, okay, well, all I care about is winning the game. What qualities can I take from this pitcher that will create a way for him to win a game? Can throw soft with command and win a game. Great, we'll take that. If your guy can throw hard only and it wins a game, I'm going to pick the qualities for that guy that are going to win the game for me. That right? Well, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say for him to win the game, because I always tell my son, you don't win the game. The team wins the game.
Yeah.
You're only helping. You're helping the team win the game.
Stick to the process to give yourself a chance to win the game. And when your team's good enough, you're going to win more games than you'll lose.
Emo, it's always great talking with you. That's why we've been friends for so long, because we think a lot alike. And I appreciate you being on. Have a happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. And I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care. Bye. Now I'd like to do a section where we go over all 29 of the previous episodes and listen to what guests told us were their top 4 qualities that a pitcher needed. Command was chosen 93% of the time in the top 4. Movement was chosen 57% of the time as the top four. Changing speeds was chosen 50% of the time. Max velocity was chosen 39%. Character was chosen 36%. Mental toughness, 32%. Know who you are at 32%. Reading batters at 29%. And sequencing at 18%. Now, here's all those guests telling you what their top four qualities are.
Yeah.
So I made a list of things that I thought were important with pitching. And I wanted to see what were the top four of those that you thought pitchers need. Now, I didn't include control in this list because I don't think you're a pitcher if you don't even have control. You're a thrower.
Makes
Right.
sense.
So I have a list that says command, changing speeds, movement, max velocity, sequencing, reading batters, and mental toughness. What are the four that you like the most?
Mental toughness, command, changing speeds, what's the other thing one you think I would like there? You've heard me enough talk for the last.
It's movement, max velocity, sequencing, and reading batters left.
Sequencing maybe next. Yeah. The mental part's extremely strong. Then we talked about commanding the baseball, right? Location, basically.
Stuff going to be determined. It's going to be, velocity is going to be an element of stuff, but there's also going to be control, command, movement. You know, those things also make up stuff. And it can't just be stuff that gets you those opportunities. Because if you don't have good performance numbers with good stuff, you probably don't get moved up levels or even have an opportunity at the major league level.
I made up a list. It's of different qualities that I thought a pitcher needs to compete. And I wanted to know which of these four qualities you thought were the most important. And first I have is they're no order. It's a character, command, changing speeds, movement, max velocity, sequencing, reading batters, and mental toughness. What order would you put your top four?
Well, you need all these qualities, right, Wayne?
Yeah.
But Felipe Lou used to say, you know, command of self equals command of pitches, right? And
I didn't heard that.
And that resonated with me, right? You know, the pitcher that has himself together, that knows what he has to do to prepare. You know, first and foremost, you have to have command of yourself. So when you say command, I would extend it to command of self. I wouldn't talk just about command of the pitches, because command of yourself will translate into command of your pitches. And I've never known a good pitcher that didn't want to be a good pitcher more than anything else he wanted to do in his life, right? So you know, that command of self, along with the intentionality or the single-mindedness of purpose, I would put a lot of weight on that.
Yeah, would you say that's character?
Yeah, that goes along with the character, but it's really about your priorities. You know, I mean, after that, I like velocity.
Yeah, you have to have velocity.
I like velocity, and I like the ability to change speeds. I like mental toughness too, but to me that goes with the first two, command and character. This sequencing, reading batters, other people can teach you those things, and you can rely on other people to do those things. So I would put those at the bottom of the list.
Yeah.
I'd put command and character at the top, and closely followed by velocity and ability to change speeds.
Yeah, you're the first person that I've had on that combined command and character to one.
I don't know. You gave me a lot of choices. Like I said, you need all those things to be a good pitcher. You
Yeah,
know, you gotta you gotta be a chef and go in the kitchen and put together the ingredients.
yeah.
And
I was
then
trying to
come
figure
out.
out. I figured I have so many great people coming on the show that I figured let me find out what they think the top four are. So I've been doing that, and at some point in the future, I'll kind of reveal to everyone. I've been keeping track, and we'll see what's a general idea that people have.
Yeah, good. I'd like to see that.
I have a list of things that I kind of think are important for a pitcher. Um, I don't include control in the list because I don't think you're a pitcher if you don't have control.
Okay.
But I want to know what you think is important, like in this list. Number one is character. Number two is command. Number two is changing speeds, movement, max velocity, sequencing, reading batters, and mental toughness. Which kind of four are the ones that percolate to the top for you as a guy who would be a good pitcher if he has those?
Well, I would say that he has command, and that's command of two or more pitches, two if you're a reliever, three or four if you're a starter.
Yeah.
And then I think the ability to be mentally tough, because you have to be resilient. You have to be able to drown the crowd out and just to move on, which I think a lot of young pitchers can't move on from a missed call from the umpire, a misplay by the outfielder. They can't get rid of that pitch. And I know Greg Maddux once said, the next pitch is the most important pitch of the game, and you have to get that mentality. If there's a missed call or an error, just you get the ball back and you focus on executing pitches. And that is part of the mental toughness that you're able to overcome that emotional anger or frustration and move to the next pitch where you're 100% committed to executing that pitch.
Without distraction.
Without distraction. I would probably say number three would be the ability to change speeds, because hitting is all about timing.
Right. So I'm the same way. Change speeds, it's another huge one for me.
And if a guy doesn't have a great changeup, well, if I had a fastball at 94 and a curve at 74, that's changing speeds.
Yeah.
And I can elevate the fastball and I can throw the curve, and the curve looks like the fastball out of the hand.
Yeah.
So
but
you have to.
Yeah, but if you only throw a 95-mile-an-hour fastball and you can't throw anything else for a strike, you're going to have a long day.
Yeah. You'll be in the showers quickly and you'll be backing up home in third a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like I said, you have to command two or more pitches. And if I picked a fourth thing out of there, man, I would probably say movement. And a pitcher to me with great movement, like those guys are like, should feel like they're never in trouble.
Yeah.
Because my movement is so unpredictable.
Yeah.
Especially if I have pitches that move, one moving to the glove side, one to the arm side. And I can throw everything towards the middle.
Yeah.
And when you throw balls towards the middle, man, the hitter wants to swing. And if you can end up on the end of the bat or on the thumbs, I've gotten soft contact.
Yeah. I made up a list of things that I thought were really important for a pitcher. I'd like to know what you think are the top four. I'm going to show you the list on the screen.
Okay.
And I just want to know what you think are the kind of the most important four that are needed. So the items are not in any kind of order. It's just the first one is character, command, changing speeds, movement, max velocity, sequencing, reading batters, and mental toughness. How would you order those?
All right. My top four, I would say out of that group would be command, changing speeds, mental toughness, which I guess you could tie character into that a little bit, although it could be different as well. Yeah. And then I still think reading batters is important. Like we talked about, I think that's a little bit of a lost art. And I guess if I was cheating a little bit to get one more in there, I think after you read the batters, I think you then have to know how to sequence your pitches to get them out.
Oh, absolutely. For example, part of the need for command is that if you read batters, as you know, as a pitcher, he is a flinch, or he doesn't flinch, or he's hunting your slider. You have to know how to read that. Then you have to know, well, what pitch should I throw to counter that?
Sure.
And then you have to have the command to execute that pitch. So it's kind of like a package,
Sure. Yeah. And they're all, you can't go wrong. Like you said, there's no right or wrong answer with that group of words there to explain pitching for sure. They're all important.
I have a list of things that I wrote that I thought were the top qualities you need to be a pitcher. Okay. And I want to get your opinion. I'm going to show you on the screen of what you thought were your top 4.
My top 4?
Now all of them are important, but just to get an idea of what you think is important. I've been doing it at every guest.
Okay.
And at some point in the future, I'm going to kind of reveal what was the top 4 and what the ratings were.
Do I have to put them in order or just give you my top 4?
Just put your top 4.
Okay.
So you're going to see a list on the screen.
Okay.
And you'll pick the top 4 qualities for a pitcher. So the character, command, changing speeds, movement, max velocity, sequencing, reading batters, and mental toughness. What are your top 4?
Ooh, this is a tough one.
Yeah, they're all needed, right?
They're all needed. I'd take all these. But if I'm going top 4 for me, I'm going to go. I can tell you my top 2 right off the bat. It's very easy. Mental toughness and character, I think, are my top 2.
Yeah.
I think you have to have those 2. Outside of that, give me. Honestly, you're not going to like this, but I would take command with velo, max velo. I would take both. And I know that's like kind of against the thing, but I would take, those are my top 4. I think change speeds is really good. But if you had max velo and you could command it, I think you would be pretty good. Also, if you could change speeds with movement, you could change speeds with movement. Like if you could do that, you'd be really good. So
any of these you could be like I think Dan DeQuette put it, it's like any of those you could be a chef, he said, and you can mix any of those things and you'd have great pitch.
Hendricks would be commanding changing speeds. Like he would be, he'd be mentally tough and he'd have good character. Like those would be his 4, but then
I think it fits in. Yeah, I think it fits in what you said earlier, is that you have different pitchers. You have different pitchers you need to fill in your staff. And from those kind of 8 things, you could pick different qualities and find different pitchers that would be on your staff,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I made that list too, because I think too often people are focusing on max velocity when there are a lot of other things that go into the mix. And you might not be the hardest thrower, but you can still succeed. Like, Sean throws, he'll sit 90-92.
Yeah.
Had his first major league spring training start. Well, how did that happen? According to places online, that shouldn't happen, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's because he had other qualities from that list.
Yeah, he's got good character. He's got good mental toughness. Like he can command. He's savvy too. Like Sean, like he can read hitters. Like he knows. He's perfected movement profiles. Like he knows how to shape pitches. Like he knows how to command. Like so. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways to get hitters out. I think, everybody has their own style and those things, but there's a lot of ways to skin a cat, but you got to find your niche. And once you find that, if you don't throw the hardest, yes, you have to command it. You have to have the art of pitching down. If you have velo, great. You still have to locate pitches. Like, the game will tell you like, hey, that's not going to be good enough. So
I think if you
find your niche.
Yeah, you have to find out who you are. I think if you have command and don't have velo, well, you can add on more velo. If you have velo, no command, then you got to add on more. So like, you got to rise all those levels up, you know?
Yep.
I have a list that I made up of things that I thought were like important for a pitcher. Probably most of them came from you, talking with you over the years. I really want to know what you think are like the top 4. So I'm going to show you a list, and you could pick the top 4. I'll say them for people who are listening with audio only. The first one is a character, and that's a character of a person, you know. Command, changing speeds, movement, max velocity, sequencing, reading batters, and mental toughness.
Yeah, this will be easy for me. Command, changes speeds, movement, and I'll say reading batters instead of sequencing, because that if you read the batter, you can kind of go into the sequencing. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's kind of what I call swing recognition, is reading hitters, and then that takes you into that sequencing. You know, obviously, mental toughness is always important for pitchers, but if you have the command, change of speeds, movement, and the ability to read hitters, you're going to be fairly successful. And
I'm going to show you a list of the top qualities I think a pitcher needs. And if you could pick the 4 that you think are the most important, every show I've been showing people this list, and I'm kind of keeping track of what they choose. And eventually I'm going to, announce what like the top 4 are. So
I'll be interested to see that list, I think.
The items are character, command, changing speeds, movement, max velocity, sequencing, reading batters, mental toughness, and a new one I added called fielding position.
I do like that you added it, but I don't think that one's going to come into play all that often. I can't imagine that's going to rank in the top 4 of everyone you ask.
Yeah, you never know. I just put them in there. So
yeah. I am going to. Ooh. Do I have to rank them 1 to 4, or am I just picking 4 things I think are important?
Yeah, which is your number 1, 2, 3, 4? Like, what do you think are the most important?
All right. I'm going to say that movement is most important. And that is certainly something that I am biased into thinking because of the way I pitch. But I think that one of the things that sort of is misconstrued is the role that movement plays overall.
Well, what do you mean by that?
So I think that people, when you watch Garrett Cole pitch on TV, right. Maybe Garrett Cole's not a great example because he throws 100, but his fastball looks straight. But Garrett Cole's fastball it's not straight in the bad sense. He's getting 18 to 20 inches of vertical movement, which is elite, and will miss bats because they're going to be under his fastball.
Yeah, well, that's a really good point. I had someone contact me, it was late last year sometime, and they were facing DeGrom. It was another MLB team. It was a hitting coach for another team.
Right.
And he was telling me that DeGrom's fastball looks straight. How do we deal with it? I pulled up the data and I looked at it in my pitch grader software, and I could see if I looked at it behind the catcher, DeGrom's fastball, I could see the movement. But when I went to the point of view of a right-handed batter, all of a sudden it looks straight. It's like the point of view you're looking from matters a lot.
Yeah. But I think it's just the idea that if it looks like it's the idea that left and right movement is the only kind of movement is what I think is it's lost sometimes in the broadcast, in the watching a pitcher throw. It's just like, yeah, DeGrom's fastball looks straight, but it's vertically, it's riding. It looks like it's hopping past you. Mm-hmm. Whereas some fastballs that in what we call the dead zone, those fastballs that have equal amounts of vertical and horizontal movement, those are the ones that are generally easiest for hitters to actually hit, but they look like they're running. They look like they have good movement.
Every guest I have on the show, I put up a list of 8 items that I think are important for a pitcher to have success. And I asked them to pick their top 4. Just tell me what's your number 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to show you on the screen, and just tell me what you think is your top 4. So we have character, command, changing speeds, movement, max velocity, sequencing, reading batters, and mental toughness. And now character, I think, is a character of the person, your attention to doing your work you do and being good to other people and all that,
Sure. Well, I think top 4 is what you want, right?
Yeah. Top 4 that is going to, if you had to pick the top 4 to make a good pitcher.
Let's see here. That's tough.
Yeah, they're all needed, right?
I was gonna say, can I pick them all? I think if I had to put up at the top, I don't want to say 1 or 2, but velocity and command, they got to be together. I don't ever look at them exclusively. So I'm going to say, however you want to put as 1 or 2, you have command velocity or velocity command. I think that both they make up the success of somebody long term. So I think those could be argued either way. Both need to be skills that are developed over time, and I think those are both highly important. I'd put changing speeds is 3, and then I would put reading batters as 4 on there. I think those would be my top 4, and I think you could argue all of these to be in different spaces. But if you're throwing hard, if you have velocity, then you've got to be sequencing, I think, to some degree.
And if you're reading batters, to take advantage of that, you have to have command, because to throw the pitch where you need to.
I think a lot of them could be argued that they're maybe together, and even like mental toughness. If you're reading hitters and you have the confidence enough to say that you're right in a pitch, then you have some sort of confidence or some sort of mental toughness around that. I don't know. I could say that there's a lot of different.
Well, Dan DeQuette had a nice way of putting it, which was that he said you could be like a chef with this. Basically, you could take certain qualities out of that list and you could create a power pitcher. You could take certain qualities and create a finesse pitcher. Right. So, they're right. You're right that they're qualities that every pitcher should have. But I have a thing I do every show. I put a list of what the top 4 qualities you need for a pitcher. So I just want to know, what are the top 4 that you think, like your number 1, your number 2, and I'm going to show them on the screen, and then I'll say them just so the people who are listening can know what they are. Here's my list of top qualities that you need to be a pitcher. Now, I'd like you to tell me what your top 4 are, like number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. They are command, character, changing speeds, movement, max velocity, sequencing, reading batters, mental toughness, and know who you are. What would be your number 1, 2, 3, and 4?
Man, difficult.
Yeah, I think you need them all, right?
Right. So I have the 4 here. You're never. I'm gonna go movement. Number 1, you got to have stuff. You got to have quality pitch shapes. Man, command and velo then become tied, because you can kind of get away in the game right now if you have great pitch shapes and you throw hard, you get it around the zone, but you might not make it. Same kind of deal. Like if you've got great pitch shapes and you throw them for strikes, but there's not enough velo, you might not make it. So those two become really hard for me. I'll go velo's the floor. We're looking to make above average major league pitchers here. You got to have velo. So let's go velo. Command, much to my chagrin, will have to be 3rd. And then the character is the 4th. That's really the crowning jewel on all of this. It really doesn't matter. Like if you have those 3 things and you've got terrible character, like in our system, we're trying to become
we're trying to put players up to the major league level to play on a championship team, right? If you can't impact the clubhouse positively, don't really care how good you are, because you create more negatives. Like there are a lot of players who might not be the best player on the field, but they elevate everybody around them, and they are more valuable than the guy who's really talented, but makes everybody else worse around them. So character becomes a big separating factor when you start getting to the major league level, because if you don't have that character, if you're not on the clubhouse, if you can't handle playing in a big stadium and the ups and downs in the media and all that, you can't play in New York.
I have a list of about 9 items that I think are really important for a pitcher to have. Everyone struggles with this because you need all of them. And I'm trying to find the top 4. So, like, what would be your top 4? I'm going to show you a list. You tell me what you think is your number 1, your number 2, and number 3, and number 4. And I'll read them off for people who are listening. The first is character, command, changing speeds, movement, max velocity, reading batters, mental toughness, and know who you are. Now, if you go online, everyone will tell you that you need max velocity only.
There's a funny story to this that I remember, I think it was Mazzoni would always ask his pitchers, how would you rank location, movement, change of speeds, and velocity, the 4 things you could do to baseball. Actually, change of speeds, you need 2 pitches to actually do. You can't do it with 1 pitch and change speeds on it. But and he would, I think it was Mazzoni, but it would be, and so they would always say, okay, location or command 1, movement or change of speeds 2 and 3, velocities 4. And he's like, well, then why are you trying to throw the ball as hard as you can if velocity is the least important of those 4?
Yeah, the other one that I didn't put on here, because it's one that I kind of really like, is changing angles. And what I mean by that is changing horizontal and vertical approach angles,
Sure. Well, I'll go with command 1 and movement 2. I think I'm pretty confident 1 and 2. After that, I run into a little bit of an issue, but max velocity, if you just had velocity, I might put that in there because it is important, but you can pitch well without it. I don't know if you actually need it. There's several pitchers that would,
Yeah, I think there's probably a minimum velocity you might need.
Yes. Yeah. So I would say command, movement, changing speeds, and then I really like know who you are. I'm going to put that in the top 4 because I've talked to so many pitchers, and I think nowadays it's even more important of basically having an identity and knowing yourself and knowing what you're good at. I mean, Derek Johnson talks about be great at what you do good. I mean, but you got to know what you do good first before you can actually, and coaches and analytic guys, analysts, everybody can help you with where your pitchers play the best and what locations are best for you. But, sometimes you have to have a different plan against righties and a different plan against lefties. So if you don't know who you are and what you do well, then it's going to be tough to be successful.
This part of the show, what I do is I ask everyone to pick their top 4 qualities that they would like for a pitcher. Now, I think, and everybody also thinks, that you need all of these qualities. So we're kind of looking to find what are the top 4. So if you would please look at this, I'll show it to you on the screen. I'll read it out to the people who are listening so they can know what they are. The first is character, command, changing speeds, movement, max velocity, sequencing, reading batters, mental toughness, and know who you are.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Some go with each other. So this is going to be a little bit more straightforward. I think, like I said, the first, pro ball and college ball, a little bit different thought process in the what I want as a pitcher thing, because I think at the end of the day, they still all come out in the wash. But a character thing is a big deal to me as a human being, and so I think character is very much, if it's not the top, it's definitely up there. But I think the the three at the bottom kind of sum up the other three that I would say, because they go in with the rest of them, like sequencing, max velocity, movement, changing speeds, command, go into reading batters, they go into mental toughness, and it goes into knowing who you are. And so I think for me, knowing who you are is a big deal, because that is, you need to be a good enough self-evaluator to know what you're good at and to know what you're not so good at, to be able to create a game plan to go forward from a developmental standpoint as well as a competition standpoint. And so I think that's a kind of a deeper one. Mental toughness is somebody who can handle adversity when it's thrown at their way, and how they navigate through that adversity is how mentally tough you can be. And I think that needs to be trained daily, but also needs to be like a foundational piece to athletes in general, not just in our sport, but in all sports, because we, like the old saying of like, you're a Hall of Famer if you are a 300 hitter. So that means out of 10 at bats, you're failing 7 times, right? Like failure is a big part of our game. And I think the ability to navigate the failure is what sets people apart to be the best that they can be. And then the reading batters thing goes in with the sequencing, movement, max velocity, all that stuff. Like you have to understand how the hitter is attacking your stuff and what they're doing with that. And that needs to have a little bit of tea leaf off of it that understands the sequencing. Why am I sequencing a certain way? Why am I getting the results I'm getting? And how am I getting that? Well, my velocity needs to, my speed changing and my movement capacity of each pitch needs to do a certain thing to be able to have success. Well, being able to read what the hitter sees off your stuff to be able to make that adjustment kind of goes into it. So I think I will take off the pitching specific sequencing, max velocity, movement, changing speeds, command, because I think that all goes into knowing who you are, how mentally tough you are, and how you can read hitters. So that's my 4, I guess.
Awesome.
That's a hard question, because all those things, like you can hear different versions of it that kind of come to the same thing that I was saying, but they might use the other 4 as their top 4, right? So you definitely did that for a reason, and definitely loaded, but that would be my 4 just because of how my perspective is.
Well, yeah, like Dan DeQuitt put it nicely too when he said, you can act like a chef and take ingredients to create different pitchers, like a finesse pitcher, a power pitcher. Like you can create different types of pitchers by drawing out 4 or 5 qualities from that list. And I think if you have them all, you're going to be a Jarrett Cole or a DeGrom or a Verlander or one of the great pitchers, you know? And so we want to see what is your number 1, 2, 3, and 4?
Again, I go back to character, who you are, the person that you are, the competitor that you are. Who are you when you're not your best? When you're down, when the chips are down. We always talk about going in the foxhole. Who would I go in the foxhole with? Who's going to have my back, and who do I want to have their back? And I think it's who you are when it isn't going well. And again, I think command is incredibly important. You know, being able to throw the ball with your stuff, 4 strikes, knowing when to expand. You know, we always talk about how to create strikes. I mean, hitters are good these days; they're disciplined. But we've got to be able to go and create strikes. And again, it goes back to that uniqueness and sequencing and, using misses to our advantage, but we've got to be able to go create strikes. So that's where I play movement and changing speeds is really important. And then that sort of that effective velocity, but unique ball flight. I think unique fastballs in today's game, and that's where ball tracking technology can be used to our advantage. If we've got a unique heater, we want to sell out to that thing. If we don't have a unique heater, Mariano Rivera made a hell of a career with a unique cut fastball, a cutter, and it can be done. And he had different variations of that pitch throughout his career. And
then he taught it to Halladay. They got all mad at him. Look what Halladay did.
That's right. That's right. That was good for the Phillies. But I think if you, again, it's also knowing yourself too, and not trying to be somebody else, and knowing what makes you unique. And we have some in our organization that are very unique heaters. Now we have to teach them how to pitch with that, how to get guys out with that, and utilize the other weapons to make that pitch even better. So that's our job, and we'll continue to do that, to our best of our ability.
I have a list that I show everybody of like the qualities that I think every pitcher needs. I think you need all of these, so it might be a little tough, And I was wondering if you could look at this and kind of pick what are your top 4 and let us know. I'm going to show you that on the screen, and then I'm going to read them out. And those qualities are character, command, changing speeds, movement, max velocity, sequencing, reading batters, mental toughness, and know who you are.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's a pretty extensive list. Yeah.
Like if you could have a pitcher that had all those, you'd probably say, I'll sign him right now, right?
Oh yeah, exactly. Very rare. You know what? I mean, I think where we're at now and the resources in the game, the know who you are part is number one in turn, because that to me dictates a lot of the types of pitches that you throw, like how your body moves. Being able to be more effective. I mean, and then not trying to be something you're not. And I think that there was this fad of chasing the vertical break, and some pitchers' bodies and don't work like that. You want it, everybody wants it, but it's hard. Not everybody moves the same way. So know who you are. I would say the movement part. I think that's whether, I mean, you could say fastball life in terms of run, sink, but also combining that with vertical break, combine that with, your breaking pitches, how your fast or how your changeup moves. So know who you are, movement, command, ability to execute, combine that. I would combine that with, let's just call it feel. Which blends a little bit into changing speeds, but being able to execute that. And then, the mental toughness part, that's kind of like the cherry on top, right? And,
you need that.
I mean, that can either max out a guy's ability or prevent him from achieving what he could.
I have a list of 9 different qualities that I think are needed for a pitcher. Mm-hmm. You may think there are more, and if there are, let me know. What I do is put the list up, and you pick the top 4 that you think are the best. Now, of course, if you had a pitcher, you would say, I want all 9. So the hard part is to pick, the 9 that you think are the top. All right, so here's a list. I'm going to read them out for people who are listening. The one is character, command, changing speeds, movement, max velocity, sequencing, reading batters, mental toughness, and know who you are.
All right, so I'm gonna have to cheat here, Wayne. So I'm gonna start with 9 with know who you are, because I think that encompasses a lot of all these other categories, right? If I know who I am, I know what my command is. I know whether I'm good or not at changing speeds. I know my movement and stuff like that. So I think that's the most important. I would say the next we'll put command and max velocity kind of next, because as I said, like nowadays you're gonna need some of both, and it's gonna velocity is going to come for you at some point, or command's going to come for you at some point. And so, as we've mentioned, guys have really been focused on velocity, but as more guys are focused on velocity, more of that velocity becomes average and stuff. And so now you've got to find other things that separate you. Yeah. And so then I think the last one I would say probably is reading batters. Just because, again, like that's, as we said, that's the outcome, and there's so much feedback that processes into that feedback loop of what I'm going to throw next, which then factors into sequencing and stuff like that. So those are the 4 I'm throwing in my toolbox and taking with me.
So if you would please pick your top 4. Now the list says a character, command, changing speeds, movement, max velocity, sequencing, reading batters, mental toughness, and know who you are.
And okay, so I've kind of approached this like it's like I'm a scout almost. And there's no question I want all 9 of those things in every single pitcher.
Yeah.
But if I had to, from a scouting perspective, I'm looking at a player and say, all right, can this guy become a major league player? My number one is movement. And I say movement because if you have really good movement, you can get away with a little bit less command as long as you can still control the ball in the strike zone.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if it's unique movement that hitters aren't used to seeing. You can get outs, and that's what we talked about. We want quick outs.
Absolutely.
So that was number one, and this goes to missing the barrel, avoiding damage. Number two, I would go command, also because it helps you avoid damage. If you can locate the ball in or just off the strike zone and get the hitter to hit it off the end of the bat or the label of the bat, again, you're avoiding damage and you're getting outs.
Mm-hmm.
Number three is changing speeds. Again, goes to the same thing I was talking about in terms of missing the barrel. And these kind of all go to missing the barrel.
Yeah.
And then number four would be velocity. There's definitely a connection between velocity and swing and miss, but I don't think it's the be all and end all. And I do think, quite frankly, major league hitters can hit velocity unless it's commanded. Charlie Manuel used to have a saying, if I get my front foot down, I could square up a bullet, which is just a way of saying, hey, guys can hit fastballs.
I'm seeing that too. That's why I've been saying, like, have high velo. That's good. I think you need that. But without command, if you just have control, you're going to leak it up into the wrong location, and these guys are going to hit it out of the park.
Right. So that's why I go movement 1, command 2, change speeds 3, velocity 4. Now, if you have all 4 of those things, you're going to be in pretty good shape.
Yeah. At the end of the show, I always put a list of 9 things that I thought a pitcher needs. I think a pitcher should have all of them. I think if a pitcher did have all of them, they'd be a Verlander or a Jarrett Cole. I think you could pull out 3 or 4 and develop, say, a finesse pitcher or a power pitcher or different types of pitchers out of these qualities. But I'd like you to look at the list and tell me what you think are your top 4. And I'll read them off so people listening can know what they are. They are character, command, changing speeds, movement, max velocity, sequencing, reading batters, mental toughness, and know who you are.
Okay, I'm gonna. I wrote some of these down, Wayne, because I knew this was coming. I didn't know you were going to put it on the screen, but that helps me. Now I'm gonna. I know you say a lot of people, they do this, and you're gonna come up with what the most common answers and things were. For me, number 1 is know who you are. So I'm going, number 1 is know who you are. 2, I'm going command. And with command, I think goes sequencing. So I don't know if you'll allow me to put those 2 things together or not, but command and sequencing, I think go hand in hand. 3, and I've talked about this a little bit on the show, is reading batters, taking the information you have, but also the ability to read batters. What's going on a particular day? You're adapting and adjusting day to day, game to game, pitch to pitch. And then my last one is mental toughness. We talked about some of this on the show. Preparing yourself, being in the right mindset when the pitches have to be made, you execute, you visualize, you know where you can go with pitches, you know how to set people up, you handle the adversities of the game, whatever may come your way, falling behind early, battling, stay in the game, allowing your offense to come back. All those things make you a dependable and consistent pitcher in my eyes. All the rest of them are great too. You could name any 4 out of that list that you got. There's no question, and not be wrong in any of the ways you listed them. But for me, those would be the 4 that I would go right now or say were very important to me, and I think make up good character traits of a really good pitcher.
At the end of the show, I always show you a list, and I'm going to put it on the screen so you can see it and the others can see it, of 9 things that I think are really important for a pitcher to have. And if you would please, I'd like to know what your top 4 are Okay, and I'm going to read them off now,
All right.
so people are listening. On the list are character, control, command, changing speeds, movement, max velocity, sequencing, reading batters, mental toughness, and know who you are.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go first, and I'll try to do this in order, but I'm going to start with command, right? Command of your arsenal, the idea that like I talked about, we talk a lot about count specific strategic locations, and that's really specific to the individual pitcher and their arsenal. And so command of your arsenal is really important, probably the most important, you know, because we know Brody Breck's not going to be 99 to 101 every day. You know, he's going to have to command it at 97, 98 as well. So
well,
command
also, I think, I think command goes towards your other pitches too.
Absolutely.
You have to command your slider, your curveball, your changeup, everything.
Yep, strategically inside and outside of the strike zone for sure.
Yeah.
The second piece now is, you know, with us understanding just how important breaks are on pitches, and we focus a ton on pitch design, right? We talked about shape to location. We have tons of marked up balls, and you know, we're trying to facilitate both break, you know, shape and location. I would say movement is second.
Yeah.
Third, I'm gonna cheat here a little bit, Wayne, but I'm gonna say character. But within that, I'm going to lump in like mental skills, right? I think those that have character also do a really good job with like the mental skills between pitches. They train and focus on the right thing at the right time. And then finally, I wish you didn't have the word max in there because I would go velocity, but we'll go changing speeds, right? We understand, you know, throwing the same 92-mile-an-hour bolt over and over again might not be the best thing for us. I'll go changing speeds. But again, I think you listed these qualities because, you know, we understand that all nine of them are really necessary to make a really complete pitcher the best version of themselves.
Yeah. So now I'm going to bring up a list of 9 things that I think are important for a pitcher. And if you would please pick your top 4, and I'm going to read them off real quick. The top 9 qualities I think are character, command, changing speeds, movement, max velocity, sequencing, reading batters, mental toughness, and know who you are.
Well, I think character and mental toughness kind of go together. So I'll make that will be one by itself.
All right.
I think changing speeds is extremely important. I think movement is you've got, well, I'll go to the end there. You have to know who you are. I mean, you can't be pitching like, geez, I want to pitch like Greg Max. If you're not Greg Max, if you're George Kirby, you don't pitch like Greg Max.
Right. That's a big one.
Although I will say this, in the last start of the year, the day after Tim Wakefield died, he started out a very important game by throwing a knuckleball. And I think reading batters is terribly important. We talked about that, but I'm a great believer in that.
So what would it be? It would be character, changing speeds, know who you are, and reading batters?
Yes.
And so what I'm going to do is post these later because now we're at, I think, 20 shows. And so I've been keeping track of what everyone answers. And then I'll kind of post, you know, so everyone sees what other people, what people thought were important. It's funny, though, max velocity has really come up in the top 4.
Depends on someone's max velocity. Somebody's max velocity might be 93, but it has great movement or is very tough to pick up because and the arm slot is so important. I mean, that's part of knowing who you are. You're not an over the top pitcher you're a low 3/4 and you get great movement with that, and you can your fastball is it's the equivalent of a 96, but it happens to be 92, 93.
9 things I'm going to show you on the screen, and they're different qualities that I thought pitchers ought to have to be, good pitchers. And I asked a guest if you would please pick what are your top 4, if you just the top 4 of what you would want in a pitcher. Okay, so out of this list, which are the top 4 that you think pitchers need? And I'll read them off for people who are listening. Character, command, change of speeds, movement, max velocity, sequencing, reading batters, mental toughness, and know who you are.
Yeah, it's a tough one, right? Because you put all the good stuff in there, and
right. If a guy had all those things, he'd be a Hall of Famer, right?
Right. So off the top, I'm going to throw out max velocity right off the top, because I think you can win without max velocity all day, every day, in any genre, anytime, any place.
Wait. Would you pick max velocity as one, or you're throwing it out?
No, I'm throwing it out. Yeah, I wouldn't
Okay.
pick that as one. I think command is definitely one for me. Movement is number 2, because that's talking about that consistent kind of shape. So command and movement are definitely 2. And then I'm going to go with character, because I think if you have good character, that's gonna give you the ability to know who you are, have mental toughness. So I'm going character, command, movement, and then I'm going to go with sequencing over changing speeds. Just, they're both super important, but I think the sequencing might take care of changing the speeds if you can kind of sequence your pitches right. So my top 4 are going to be character, command, sequencing, and movement.
Awesome. Yeah, that fits with how you pitch too.
Yeah. It's a mixed bag, like you said, and there's so many different ways to kind of slice it, and you just hope guys can figure out, like we said, how do you help your team the best with the skill set that you are kind of either born with or that you've procured over the years in the minor league.
Be you. It's like be you. It's like the team's got you on that mound because of who you are. Don't try to be some other pitcher. Try to be true to yourself and true to your teammates. I think if you help other people, most people are good. They'll help you when you need it. And
the other thing too, that I had talked about with Scott Lovecamp over the years, that the Yankees have come around to the idea, and I don't know if any other organization has, is that the fact that you draft a player when he's 18 years old, or let's say 21 out of college, it makes no difference either way. And you've been watching this guy for a couple of years, and there's a certain amount of skills that he's bringing to the table that you think makes him successful. And then you ship him into the minor leagues, and the scout has nothing to do with this player ever again. So you take him from the scouting him for a couple of years, you give him over to the minor league pitching coaches, who then have their own ideas of how this guy should be. And so I was really pleasantly surprised to Scott tell me that the Yankees, allow him to still have some time with these guys that he's drafted for the first couple of years, so that the way you don't change him so much and you kind of take the magic away from him.
So I'm going to show you the list. And if you would please just pick your top 4 that you think are the most important. I know that all of them are important, and that if you had all of them, you'd have a Nolan Ryan or a Jacob deGrom, you'd have a Scherzer. But if you had to pick only the top 4, what would you choose? Now, so I'm going to put it on the screen for people to see, and I'll read it out loud for people who are only listening. And they are character, command, changing speeds, movement, max velocity, sequencing, reading batters, mental toughness, and know who you are. So what would be your top 4?
Yeah, no, I think it's this is a great list. And like you said, if you could pick all 8, you'd have, or all 9, I'm sorry, you could have a Jacob deGrom, a Scherzer, one of those premier pitchers in baseball. I think ultimately, as I'm viewing this list, there's some things that there's like, know who you are for me is number 1. I actually think there's a few other qualities that go into that if you know who you are, ultimately you're going to have you're going to understand your character. You're going to understand your mental toughness. Number 2 for me would be commands. Ultimately, again, I can't assess your stuff until you're in the strike zone.
Right.
Max velocity for me, again, like command is an amplifier of max velocity.
Right.
It's going to further multiply your ability to have success at those higher levels. And then lastly, yeah, movement. Movement is your ability to have some unique qualities and get to some shapes and pitches that others can't is inherently more predictive of your success long term as well.
Yeah, I like your number 1 because that's a really big one for me. I have a list of things at the end of the show. If you please read them, and just tell me what are your top 4. I'm going to read them, and so people who are listening can know what they are.
Okay.
The top qualities I think a pitcher needs are character, command, changing speeds, movement, max velocity, sequencing, reading batters, mental toughness, and know who you are. And if you would please pick the top 4 that you think. I know that you need all of them, you know?
Wow. Let's see. I wish I could combine a couple together. Like the character and mental toughness, I wish I could combine those two. So I'll go character 1 because I think that's going to impact every other one. Because that's going to be who they are off the field, which is going to impact how they, the way they work out, the way they train, the way they live.
Yeah, that's a multiplier like command is a multiplier, right?
Yep. So I'll go character 1. Character 1, command, velocity, sequencing. And obviously, like we've talked about, there's differences in there. It's like, well, if the velocity's not there, but they have elite movement, we're good.
Yeah. If you Dan DeQuette had said on the show that list was like a mixture. Like you can take different parts and create a power pitcher. You can create a finesse pitcher, like all those qualities. And then if you had all of them, you have an elite pitcher. But you can, like you said, create different pitchers out of them,
Yeah.
I know you got to run. Thanks so much for coming on the show. This has been one of my favorite shows.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate you've had a big impact on our program. So Pitch Grader, the Command Trakker, you do phenomenal work. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And thanks. Now I have a thing I always do at the end of the show where I put 9 things up that I think every pitcher should have. And if they had all 9, you'd have like a Hall of Fame pitcher.
Yeah.
And I ask people if they'll please choose which 4 that they think are the most important. So I'm going to put those on the screen and I'm going to read them out for people who are only listening. They are character, command, changing speeds, movement, max velocity, sequencing, reading batters, mental toughness, and know who you are. So if you could pick 4 that are the most important to you as a rehab coach, maybe,
Yeah, absolutely. As far as a rehab setting, obviously know who you are is pretty important up there for me. I think that's huge in a rehab setting to know who you are in terms of like overall stuff in arsenal, and obviously who you are as a pitcher. I would go number 2 would be max velocity. I just think it's so overall important for guys that build up from rehab setting to like how can we get them better overall. And then thirdly being command for me, obviously being able to have that ability of like commanding your stuff or where you're going through. And then 4th being obviously the movement. I would say, 3 and 4 could be interchangeable in terms of command and movement. Cause I think like, obviously if you guy that can move the ball around pretty well, you can pitch to basically general locations or larger locations that can get swing and misses. Versus obviously being a command in a general, you actually know who you are and you're very specific to a location. You can basically you have the stuff and ability to like generalize that versus like a guy that's just maybe movement. You got larger movement areas. Maybe you still command it to the outer third pretty well with one specific pitch versus like same or opposite batter hand.
At the end of the show, I always put a list of 9 things that I think are important for a pitcher to have, and that I tell everyone that if you had all 9, you'd be a Hall of Famer. So everyone wants them all. But I say try to pick your top 4 that you think are the most important. So I'm going to put them on the screen, and then I'm going to read them off so that people listening can know what they are.
Okay.
Okay, so the top things are character, command, changing speeds, movement, max velocity, sequencing, reading batters, mental toughness, and know who you are.
Yeah, so for me, I'm going to say command, know who you are, reading batters, and I'll go with movement.
Okay. I think that was the fastest anyone picked them in 25 episodes.
I think
Right,
probably
so-
the biggest. No, I was going to say, I think probably the most important, you got to start with knowing who you are.
At the end of the show, I show a list of the 9 things that I think are important for a pitcher. I think if you had all of them, you'd be like a Hall of Fame guy. So I'm going to show you that list, and I'll read them off so the guys listening can know what they are. And if you would please pick your top 4. And again, I know you would want all of them. Like Brad Osmus said the other on his show, it's like, I want it all. I get that. So, but if you couldn't have it all, what would be your top 4? Okay. And the top qualities are character, command, changing speeds, movement, max velocity, sequencing, reading batters, mental toughness, and know who you are.
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's the easy answer is all of the above. But I think for me, I would probably have to go with, command. I think command and to me, command is ultimately execution also, which we've talked a little bit about. So I think command, is there. Also, I still would say max velocity, because I do think that having that, is important at the highest level. I would say reading batters. That's probably the catcher coming out in me, but I would say reading batters. And then I would say, movement for me would probably be the next thing. I would definitely say going back and forth there between sequencing and reading batters, but I do think some of these overlap into each other a little bit, but I definitely, I would go with those 4.
Yeah, they definitely kind of overlap. Like knowing who you are, helps you know what to develop, what's your, your strengths or things like that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think, like I said, I think a lot of these things are, as you said, the right answer is you want them all. But I think for me, those 4 probably go together the best.
At the end of the show, I always show a list of 9 of the things that I think a pitcher ought to have. And everybody always will want to pick all 9 because that's what you want. But what I always try to find out is, what are the top 4? So I'm going to show you a list on screen, and I'm going to read it. And if you'd please tell me what the top 4 qualities you would like to see in a pitcher.
Okay.
And so those are character, command, changing speeds, movement, max velocity, sequencing, reading batters, mental toughness, and know who you are.
Yep. So top 4 for me would be command. Is this in order 1 through 4?
No, I just
the top 4. All right. So command.
What's
I'd
your
say command
1?
is number 1. Command would be
All right.
my number 1. And then I would say changing speeds would be my number 2. And then I would say movement would be number 3. And then I would say sequencing would be number 4.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I have a list of 9 things I'm going to show you on the screen. And I ask everybody to pick your top 4, we all want all of them because we say, well, you have to have all of them, you're going to be the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But if you would please look at this list and tell me what you think are your top 4. And they're in no order. It's just a list. It's character, command, changing speeds, movement, max velocity, sequencing, reading batters, mental toughness, and know who you are. What would be your top 4?
I think mental toughness, command, movement, character. I think those would be, probably, I think the mental toughness allows you the ability to find some of the other, sequencing, changing speeds, knowing who you are, reading batters. Max velocity is more of a physical physiology more than it is a mentality. But yeah, I think mental toughness would go first and foremost if we're talking about a category where everybody's similarly talented. Yeah, I would think mental toughness would trump everything.
Yeah.
It's going to make you go do the work. You know what I mean? It's going to make you understand what sequencing is, what changing speeds is, what I'm going to need to do in an off season from a movement standpoint to get max velocity. Like, it's going to be discipline. Mental toughness is discipline, and I feel like that's the separator.
Don't forget to hit subscribe to get notified when new episodes are released. Pitching Command Show, brought to you by Command Trakker, the smart target that MLB and D1 teams rely upon to measure and train command. Many throw hard, but few command. Visit commandtrakker.com.